Very.
All right, well, good evening. We are happy to have you here with us, and I love to see all the smiling faces in the back row. We're always glad to see students here and have the opportunity to hear from you, because that is why we're here. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Item 1.3 is approval of the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Item 1.4 is a presentation from the Wells FFA. So come on up.
On behalf of the Wells FFA chapter, we would like to thank you for inviting us to speak tonight to give a presentation on the activities of the Wells FFA chapter. I'm Jory Wright here with Madison Wattell, Jackson Dahl, Carolina Johnson, and Morgan Norda, with our advisors, Mr. Norda and Mr. Kendall. But we also had basketball games in Wells tonight, so not everyone could attend. It has been a busy year so far for our chapter. Last October, our chapter was fortunate enough to get to travel to Indianapolis to compete at nationals. For most of us, it was our first time competing in person. Our poultry team received a bronze emblem, and our conduct of chapter meetings team received a silver emblem. Students were also able to attend the national convention sessions, attend leadership workshops, the career fair, and expo. All members that attended it had a fun and educational experience. Last fall, our range team won the state CDE and went on to compete in the Western National Contest. I would like to turn the time over to Madison and Carolina to give a short report on that.
Hello, my name is Carolina Johnson. I'm so excited to tell you guys about the range CDE. Participating in this competition was such an amazing experience, but I also had so much fun. 4 of my older siblings participated in the range CDE. I remember as a little kid playing in the hills behind my house, and my siblings would point out plants like crested wheatgrass or basin wild rye. So by the time I got to high school, I already knew a little bit about the plants, but I didn't realize how much more I would learn and how much fun I would have. The Rangeland CDE is an awesome hands-on experience for FFA members looking to learn more about range or entering a career into it. My range team and I learned to identify plants and if they are beneficial to animals. We also became proficient in calculating complex stocking rate scenarios, which tell us how much animals need to eat and how much food per acre, grass per acre will grow in different terrains. I learned so much in range, and I know that this knowledge will benefit me throughout my entire life.
Hello, my name is Madison Wattell. Our range team had great success this year thanks to our hard work and fun times that I had the privilege of sharing with my FFA range team. The state rangeland competition was a wonderful experience for all of us and resulted in some amazing accomplishments and some even funner memories. Winning first high team, Jackson Dahl winning first high individual, myself as second high individual, And the rest of my team, Carolina, Grant, and Truman Kington, also scoring well. And of course, the snake we encountered during the math portion of the exam were some of the key highlights from this exciting opportunity. Western National Rangeland competition lived up to the same expectations as state for our team. Although it was very cold in Oregon, we had a very successful day in the field. We had the honor of bringing home the title of First High Team, and Carolina's hard work was proven when she was awarded First High Individual, also known as Top Range Hand Management, High Plant Identification, and Top Range Land Hand Award. I placed 7th overall, and my teammates also did amazing. We couldn't have done it without the hard work and determination that every member of our team put into this contest. The trip to Oregon was a great learning experience, as well as an opportunity to bond with my peers as we got to go through the motions of these fantastic contests. Safe to say that I learned so much, and there's always more to learn when we're doing these contests. I'd like to thank you guys again for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of the Wells FFA chapter and the Range team. We are involved in numerous community development projects, and one of them is the Sagebrush projects, where we grow and plant seedlings for the fire restoration. I would like to turn the time over to Morgan to give a brief report on that.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Norda. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to be here tonight, and I'll be speaking on behalf of the Sagebrush Project in our high school greenhouse. I'd like to start off by saying that the Sagebrush Project is a very exciting and educational activity for our chapter. It has given us a chance to develop relationships with NDOW, BLM, and other wildlife agencies. Students are receiving hands-on experiences in the growing and propagating of sagebrush and working in the greenhouse. Here are a few specifics about our program. We first started the project in the summer of 2020 when NDOW provided all the supplies and seedlings for 4,500 sagebrush seedlings. Those were grown out and planted in the Spruce Mountain area in the spring of 2021. It was an amazing opportunity for me, and I got to work alongside my advisor and father, Don Norda, throughout the summer, taking care of the plants. In the spring of 2021, our chapter received a grant from the Nevada Wildlife Record Book Foundation to purchase supplies to grow another crop of sagebrush. 11,300 sagebrush seedlings and 3,500 white stem rabbitbrush seedlings were grown out, and they are expected to be planted this spring. I am the student manager of the greenhouse project, and during the summer, I worked alongside Grant Kington, a fellow student at Wells High. Our chapter is applying for another grant from the Nevada Wildlife Record Book Foundation, and we have plans to grow another 10,000 sagebrush seedlings and 3,500 white stem rabbitbrush seedlings to be planted in the fall of this year, weather permitting. Our chapter would like to thank the Nevada Wildlife Record Book Foundation, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Caleb McAdoo and Jim Cooney for their support throughout the project and the amazing opportunities they have provided for our chapter. Thank you.
Lastly, we would like to share some of the upcoming events our chapter is doing. We will be attending winter leadership training on February 15th and 16th. Creed and all speaking events will also take place at that time. To celebrate FFA Week, we will be having our annual chapter potluck, the 22nd, holding an assembly and having dress-up days and other activities. In March, we are planning to travel to Reno for state, where each member in our chapter will compete in at least 2 events. Thank you all for your continuous support throughout the years. We look forward to furthering our success as a chapter. The work we do helps us build lifelong and career skills, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do without the support of our school district and community. Thank you again for letting us speak at this meeting. Please excuse us as we won't be staying for the entire meeting so we can go support our teams playing back at home. Thank you.
Before you leave, we're going to see if anybody has questions. Well, we won't take long, I promise, but I know you guys are good on your feet, so we're going to ask a couple questions. Any questions from the board?
I don't have a question, just congratulations and thank you for your hard work. It's
Thank
nice to
you.
see that teamwork and enthusiasm.
Yes, congratulations. Good luck at state. For each of you to be, for all of your members to be competing in at least 2 events, that's pretty impressive and definitely shows some cohesiveness. Well done. And quick question on the Western National. So at Oregon, you guys placed first high as a team. where does it go beyond that? Do you have more than just Western? Now, does it go to a national event?
So Western Nationals is, it's nationals, but it's specifically for the Western region. Because they used to have it that was for the whole United States, but once you move to Oklahoma, the plants are different and it just wasn't working out well. So they made it just specific to Western Nationals.
Great. Again, congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations and thank you. And you guys are welcome to come and speak anytime. We love to have you here. So go support your teams. Thank you for coming and good luck at state.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move on to item 1.5, receive a presentation from ECSD CTE in celebration of CTE month with an update on CTE office projects. All right. And Wells FFA, we aren't offended if you leave. So you're staying for this one, okay. All right.
They're in part of it, right?
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so I'm Heather Steele. I'm the CTE facilitator. I was here last week. Today I am here on, way more fun things. And if you guys will indulge me, I'm going to show you in the beginning of my presentation a video. It's about 17 minutes long. It contains shameless advertisement for these programs and what these kids are doing. I'm not going to apologize for that. And you'll see my program. I'm also a teacher in CTE in our district. I teach vet science at Elko High School. So if you'll give me a second to get loaded. This is why you're supposed to come to a meeting prepared and have your technology ready to go.
Jeez.
Or my backyard. Cool.
We do at CTE and Elko County School District. This is not at all inclusive of all of our programs and what all of the great things the kids are doing, but this gives you a small idea of what the kids have been up to. Whoops. Presentation mode. Okay, so if I could sum it up after that in one piece of data, why career and technical education is so critical to us, beyond all of the great things that you've seen, it's this. Thank you, Wells. Go Leopards. Thanks, Mr. Norda, Mr. Kindle. Amazing kids. So the red bar is 2021. Blue bar is 2020. Those are the graduates from those particular years. You will see that if you compare Elko, CTE, and this is a district-wide, to our standard Elko graduation rates, our kids typically graduate 7 to 8% at a higher rate than the non-CTE students. So that's my pitch. Just kidding, I got more. The video in this slide is enough, but so to break it down a little bit, one of my roles is to make sure that we have equity and access for all. This breaks down our 2020 graduates by their ethnicity, what programs they're graduating from, the diploma types. The little gray bar in the circle graph on the left, it is our goal to increase that part significantly. That is the college and career ready diploma. Either or, and can be either or both. Our work right now is focusing on getting that gray area much bigger. You can see that we have about more of our graduates are considered free and reduced lunch students than are not considered free and reduced lunch students. That'll come in play a little later. You can see there that by gender, by ethnicity, this is just kind of our overall. For those of you guys that are data nerds, the link is there so that you can actually play with all of those things and make them change. Okay, I just focused on one particular group. Remember, our 2020 graduates were an unfortunate bunch, as were our 2021 graduates, but things are definitely looking up. So the next slide focuses specifically on our special populations, in which I talked at length about in the last meeting. So the light blue bar on the left-hand side there, the left-hand chunk of data, that's our students who are considered not in our special population. Again, I'll ask you to focus on the bright green bar, which is our non-SES or our low SES students or free and reduced lunch students. So more than half of our CTE students and CTE graduates are considered low socioeconomic status. Now I'm going to keep that in your brain later. Okay, so this slide was not in your presentation that you guys had ahead. I thought about it later. Oh, this is probably important things to have. So we currently have 77 CTE programs in 8 high schools. That's counting our Battle-Born Youth Academy Mechanical Technology. It encompasses about 3,124 high school students. That does not count the middle school students. We are not tracking those yet. Okay, so our middle school programs, which I'll talk about a little bit later, we just brought them on this year with Spring Creek Middle, getting them to transition into the CTE branded programs. Here's your percentage of CTE students by high school. You will notice that for the most part, at least or close to 60% of our high school students are considered CTE students. So a big population of our high schools. Okay, so do you have any questions about that data piece? Awesome. Okay, so moving forward, we're talking about some big changes. In the past, our CTE program students were required to get in a program, a pathway, and stay with it for 3 years. So for example, if they got into our automotive technology program, in order to be a completer, they had to complete 3 years. They had to pass 2 assessments and receive a 3.0 in that program moving forward. Okay. We are to increase equity and access to our CTE programs. The state has decided that we are moving to 2-year completion programs. So students will have opportunity to take multiple pathways in their high school career. In the past, it was basically to be a completer, they really had to start as a freshman or sophomore in order to be a completer. And we're not telling them that anymore. We're moving that barrier. So we've got a huge transition phase happening as our kids who are currently in programs need to be given 3 years to complete, but the new kids coming in are going to be able to do it in 2. That's causing some growth and some change issues as we move forward, but the state is trying to guide us, and it's my role to try to smooth that process over. But the ultimate end goal is so that those last 2 years, if a student wants to get into automotive technology, they take automotive 1, 2, and then we find them a path to work-based learning. We find them a path to dual credit opportunities. We find them a path to be ready to enter the workforce by the time that they graduate college, which is brilliant. There's just some logistical things in the way that we'll get there. A lot of our CTE programs, students can actually qualify for academic credit. For example, in our ag programs, when students complete Ag Science 1 and 2, that counts towards a science credit for their graduation, provided they take 2 other lab sciences. Those programs that whole process is also changing as our programs change to the 2-year. So we're going to start re-looking at those programs for that academic credit piece. AB 38, which I talked about in length last time about the work-based learning for all, and the advisory board changes, those are coming too. And then of course, shameless plug for if people are lacking labor and the need to fill a labor shortage, the presentation I showed you show that we have a lot of kids with a lot of talent out there, and we want you to hire our kids. And if you need help in figuring that out, please feel free to contact me. Okay, that's basically getting them honestly ready to enter the workforce as they leave us. Okay. So our funding streams, we are blessed to have some of our own funding streams for these programs. Remember, 77 of them and 3,000 kids. Okay, so Perkins, which I talked to you guys a lot about last week, is formula funded, and we approximately get about $10,000 or $100,000 a year. It's yearly. We have to spend it each year in the fiscal year, and we typically use it for teacher PD. Okay, the priorities that we discussed last week or the last meeting with the CLNA, that's what drives where that funding goes. Then we receive state CTE allocated. It is also formula funded based on the number of CTE students, high school CTE students, not middle school. And we use it for some CTE support, travel funds for students to attend state competitions, usually affiliation curriculum fees for CTSOs. For example, the FFA kids, there's a fee associated with them being FFA members. So we use our grant money to cover that so that we don't let any student not be a part of a CTSO. Okay. We use that for equipment and lab supplies and testing for industry recognized credentials. Those industry recognized credentials automatically count for students to be career ready in their diploma. We use curriculum and stuff that bounces around a little bit, but it stays at about 250,000. And then the state CTE competitive is for developing new CTE programs or program development. It's approximately 4 million statewide. That's something that we have to apply for each year. Okay. So in 22, so last year, well, it's kind of this year, but it's last year. We used it for teacher PD, for national conferences, training for industry recognized credentials. If we had teachers that had to have a certification in order to offer certification to their students. And then as that funding changes, we've been kind of, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but a lot of state conferences have gone virtual, so we haven't had to pay travel. So as we didn't have to pay travel, we use that to buy equipment and things for our programs. We got a competitive grant for EHS and SCHS to buy all of the equipment and pay the application fees to the Nevada Board of Nursing for a certified nursing assistant in both of those schools. At Spring Creek Middle School, one of our competitive funding was to provide them with all of the equipment and curriculum they needed in order to move their already offered programs into CTE standards, which are the pictures that you guys saw today. And then allocated program support. That includes a little bit of travel funds for students to attend competitions and conferences and things. And then again, the curriculum fees for their CTSOs, equipment, lab supplies, purchasing, testing for those kids to be able to get those industry recognized credentials, curriculum and stuff like that. Okay. So what's next? In somewhere in the general fund is a magic little helper for our students to attend national conferences. Okay. Now remember that little blue bar I showed you, that 50%, more than 50% of our students are considered free, reduced lunch / low SES. That fund is critical for our students to be able to travel to national competitions. Okay, that fund used to be $1,000 or $100,000. It's now $80,000. But as you move forward with your budget stuff, I'm going to ask that you keep those CTSO kids in mind as we move forward. Okay, shameless plug. So I'm continuing to work and create our work-based learning program for all. That's not just CTE students, that is all students in Elko County School District. We signed a letter of support for a grant that's managed by Nevada Medicaid, which is the Oral Health Workforce Grant, which will, if funded, it's a federal grant. So if funded, it will provide training for our school nurses on oral health, and it will also potentially put dental assisting programs into our high schools so that we will graduate dental assistants, which is supposed to pay for all of that. We're continuing to build and enhance the CT and academic bridge, the national movement to break down the two silos. They're not their kids or our kids, they're our kids. And so that's a competitive grant I will put in for this year to hire a consultant to help us do that work. That's a lot of work. And then we're working on FY23 grant writing right now. Whoops. So new programs, because this is my favorite, what we've been working on. So we're looking at putting a multimedia communication program in at Elko, Spring Creek, and West Wendover High School with our existing teachers that we already have on staff. That program encompasses social media marketing and website design and marketing and a whole huge pitch out there for our hopefully businesses to use this program. So they'll start next year. We are working with our local law enforcement agencies to explore the ideas of putting in law enforcement programs in Elko, Spring Creek, and West Wendover high schools as well. Actually, I'm meeting with those guys tomorrow. They are all on board. The industry is, our law enforcement agencies are all on board with supporting these programs. So fingers are crossed. Finding instructors is an in-progress deal right now. And my favorite, the SCHS Food Science Technology Lab, which I appreciate all of your support as we hopefully move forward with that. We have all the equipment and we have the teacher. We just need a home. And then teaching and training grants. Somewhere, the Nevada Board of Education approved a magic pot of money for starting teaching and training programs in rural Nevada. We were the recipient of that, although I don't know what that looks like yet. I know the grant's been approved. It came from the Nevada Department of Education, and it's supposed to be for instructors, curriculum, equipment, everything that we need to start a teaching and training program in all of our schools. We're currently looking at already putting teaching and training into our family consumer science programs in Carlin, Elko, and Spring Creek and West Wendover, because those teachers are already in place, but we still need that support. So that magic money should be showing up anytime now. And then I'm currently working on the EHS and SCHS certified nursing assistant programs. That's we have to find instructors too. Those instructors are required to be certified by the state and have some pretty specialty pieces in place for us to do that. So I want you to check out our social media networking piece, which is called What's Happening in CTE. Kayla's been putting it on our ECSD Facebook page and it's being shared. So check that out. This is our HVAC kids working on some soldering skills. And then finally, recognition of some partnerships that we have. I'd like to take a minute just to talk about Kinross. So they came to me a few weeks ago and they want in on what we do. And they want to provide us with human capital, not fiscal capital. So they have committed to being judges for our STEM fair, and they have committed to reading days, and they have committed to helping our drama department figure out engineering for steps and sets. They've committed to having their biologists come into my classroom and explain what it really looks like to be an animal person in the industry. They've committed to providing real live project-based learning in our accounting programs. So kids can see what budgets look like with lots of zeros instead of just develop your own, right? So I really appreciate what they're doing and what they've committed to do for us so far. I'm excited for us to move this process forward. They are not just focused on CTE. They want to be involved in all the schools and all the work that we do here. Okay. Join as a new partner. Elko Area Chamber, this is all trying to get our work-based learning off the ground. Okay. And then of course, Nevada Department of Ed and GBC. Okay. And with that, I'll be done.
Well, Heather, thank you. And one of the things you talked about was the college and career ready diploma.
Yes.
And the board met a while ago and we discussed goals, and we have not finalized those because we certainly want input from the community and from all the stakeholders. But I will tell you that is on our draft goal list, is to increase the CCR diploma in Elko County School District. So I loved seeing that up there because the board is already looking at that and seeing, we looked at a lot of data and things that you showed us. I appreciate seeing that up there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, any questions from the board or comments?
Thank you for
I have
putting
a
that
few.
together.
Imagine that. The change from 3 years to 2 years, how does that impact the CCR diploma?
Well, so 2 years ago, they rewrote all the grad requirements. I'll let you jump in on that
Yeah,
part.
so not having it directly in front of me, but my recollection of the requirements are that one of the criteria for acquiring a CCR diploma was 2 years of a CTE program. So reducing that from 3 to 2 wouldn't affect that. I imagine some type of implication could be, if you're going to get the the CTE seal or endorsement, that is contingent upon completing a CTE course of study or series, or I'm not sure what the right term is,
You got
but
it.
so
Pathway.
I imagine from reducing from 3 to 2, that there's going to be some change in requirements of how you accomplish a completer, but as long as they still complete that, that would also fulfill that requirement for the endorsement.
One of the data points that goes along with that is with our 3-year completion program, we lose like 66% of our kids between level 1 and level 3 due to graduation requirements and a lot of other things that might drive kids to take other courses, involvement in sports and things like that. So one of the reasons to move it to 2 years is because our 2-year mark is like 66% retention. So we're hoping, right, that will help that.
As a parent of a freshman who's tried to tell my son what it looks like for the next 3.5 years, I kind of appreciate this, but he's going to appreciate it a lot more.
Oh, I'm
So
glad to hear that.
the where do we compare with the rest of the state as far as the CTE percentage? We're at 70-ish%. Is that high? Is that normal? Do you know?
So we are the 3rd largest CTE district in the state of Nevada as far as our numbers of students go. I haven't looked at the other ones because there's nobody to compare us to really, because Clark and Washoe are above us and they're so far above us that it's insane. But then the next closest is Lyon, and I think they have like 1,700 CTE kids. So there's no real accurate way to compare us with the rest of the state.
Okay.
As far as that goes.
Thank you. And Kinross, love to hear the support there. And I was even more excited when you said that they're moving beyond just CTE. Certainly I endorse the CTE side, but from a substitute teacher side, that may also be something to discuss with them if that's not already happening.
I made the joke when I sent out the email, I made the joke that the one thing that I did not ask Kinross for is if they would be willing to provide substitute teachers.
I also met with him and I did not neglect to joke about substitute teachers. So yeah, Mr. Matt Miller from Kinross Bald Mountain came and spoke with me as well. We had a lengthy conversation and really grateful for his support for all of our kids, not just CTE as well.
Great.
I'll also chime in that when I talked to Matt, I may have chimed in substitute teachers. So it should be up there.
I'm sure he's heard it more than once.
Thank you, Ms. Steele.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else?
I just want to make one comment and then just that this is fantastic. And that you can tell you're putting hard work. You tell that you really appreciate it. I'm with Matt where I have a freshman still as well. And she definitely has a lot of thinking to do as far as what she wants to do from there and just the opportunity that leads. Right now, we're all looking at, like you said, shortages. I can't tell you how many kids come through my clinic and then they graduate. They don't know what they want to do, right? There's not a parent that has a job they want to do. They're confused. They don't know where they want to go, but at least we can give them something when they leave the high school, graduate, that they have something they can use. And it's going to be fantastic for years. I mean, it's going to be really good. As long as we continue to support it, it's going to be great. So thank you very much for all that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Heather, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
All right, we'll move on to 1.6, receive a National School Lunch Overview presentation from Chartwells. Welcome.
Elko County. We have online. West is to just is to just kind of give you an explanation of how this works. And I guess Joe can start anytime he's ready.
Oh, I couldn't hear what you were saying. You just popped up. So sorry about that. I wasn't getting any audio here. So Steve, do you want to put it in presentation mode, please? If you go down to the bottom on the ribbon and click go down to the one to the left. Nope, back over. Back over to the left side of where the little bar is.
Right here?
No, sorry, it's probably to the right hand
to the
side.
right, to the right, to the right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, to the right. I was looking at-
Do you know what it
so
does?
And then
Now,
I don't do
now
that.
to the left a little bit.
There we go.
Oh, there you go. Okay, there you go. All right. so if you can go to the next slide, Steve, please. So thank you all for giving us an opportunity to come here tonight and share a little bit with you about the National School Lunch Program. You know, we don't have any of the pictures that you just saw in that presentation, and watching that, I was like blown away at all the things that the kids are doing, and it really made me think. It's 40 years since I've been in high school, and it's those types of things that I sit with my friends from high school that I still connect with every few years, and we sit and reminisce, and it's exactly that type of stuff that we remember. So it's really cool to see that it's still going on, and that the kids that get that type of an opportunity. So what we're going to talk about a little tonight is a little bit of an overview of the National School Lunch Program. What is the program? You know, why are we operating it? We're going to talk about the nutritional requirements. Betsy, our regional dietitian, is here, and she's going to give us a lesson in all of the things that we have to do to be compliant in the program. We're going to talk about food distribution, the commodities that we get from the government, and some of the things that happen so that we can be more effective and efficient in using those products. And then at the end, we're going to talk about the trilemma. And I'm not going to get into that too much now. I'll let you wonder what that means. And we'll see that at the end. So next slide, please. So just before we get into it, just want to introduce the team that supports Steve. I think you all know Steve. If you don't, we're in trouble. And Tobias is executive chef. And then down on the bottom, you see Betsy, who will be speaking tonight. Adrian is the district manager. He most closely works with Steve to support him in everything he needs. He's unavailable tonight, so we apologize that he wasn't able to make it. And then we have our regional vice president, Ashley Hartle, who is also unavailable tonight, otherwise she'd be here with us. And then, so you're stuck with me. So I'm the regional director of operations. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Betsy to get right into the National School Lunch Program. Thanks, Betsy. Take it away.
Thanks, Joe. I'm happy to be here with you guys. I would just say on the note of the CT, it's just cool to see food science programs. I know going through school, I didn't even know it was something that was offered, or even being a dietitian was offered, until I was well into college and decided to pick it out of a program. So it's really cool to see what you guys are doing. And something else that kind of stuck out with me from that presentation was you heard the mention of free reduced price meals. And so with that, that kind of brings us and ties it in back to the National School Lunch Program. So what is NSLP, as I'll call it? It's a federally assisted meal program, right, that operates in both the private and public sector. And it's really geared towards providing those lower no-cost meals to those free and reduced price students. Currently in the environment, you know, with COVID, things have changed quite a bit. We're kind of in an unprecedented state of just the regulatory environment and what has changed to the program to allow it to operate the way that it is now. But with that, it's impacted, I think, those free and reduced price meals. So getting applications is going to continue to be really important, not just for the National School Lunch Program, but you see it affects other programs even across the entire school district. So that will be something that we want to continue to look for, you know, next fall. And so if you guys see things about marketing or anything like that, pushing for those applications, that's certainly why, because I have a feeling that meals are going to go back to not being free next year. More to come on that from USDA. We're all waiting to see what happens. So with that, who is it, right? This big government entity, right, known as USDA, and then it filters down through state agencies ultimately. And so unlike the CET programs that you just heard about, NSLP programs actually are funneled down through the Nevada Department of Agriculture, so NDA, which is different than other states. A lot of times they go through the education sector as well. And then how, again, there's kind of two different ways that a school district can operate. We are partnered obviously with you and our food service contract management company to be helping you serve those meals. And then ultimately you guys as the district are submitting a claim Elko is back to the state of NDA, and then those meals are getting subsidized back to us at certain rates. Right now, there's just one general free rate, whereas typically there's 3 different rates of free, reduced, and then paid meals. So with that, and with any government regulation type business, there comes a lot of course, red tape. And so that's meaning that we need to make sure that we meet the meal pattern requirements. So if we could go to the next slide, Steve, please. So things have changed. The National School Lunch Program doesn't look the same that it did 30 years ago. And it's a good thing, but with that, there came a lot of changes. And I would say over the last decade, and I've been in school food for, I don't know, maybe 6 years now total, there's been a ton of change that's happened. And I think there's more just attention being brought to school lunch now, especially with COVID and being able to serve during the pandemic when, school wasn't happening, to provide that gap in all of those free meals. But beyond that, you see changes in the regulations now more so than ever with different administration changes. So the first major change that kind of came along was with Michelle Obama. She changed the regulations for the first time in literally 30 years with the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. And so with that, there also came more fruits and vegetables that we wanted to be offered daily that you see represented as vegetable subgroups in the meal pattern. And then there's always this debate that it kind of goes back and forth now about how many grains, whole grains that we have to serve. Does it have to be 100% of our grains have to be whole grain? Is it 50%? It's now 80% with the latest regulations that have been pushed out for next year. The type of milk varieties that we have to serve typically are always 1% or non-fat, and we can serve, flavored, but there's always controversy around some of that. And then also the sodium levels. So those are kind of the 3 big targets that come up a lot of times in the news about National School Lunch Program or some of those changes. So let's go to the next slide, please. Now, I know this is kind of an eye chart. Hopefully you guys have some printed handouts in front of you, or if you don't, you'll have them at some point that'll kind of outline this for you. But what this really captures is for lunch and breakfast specifically, we again have this meal pattern, and it's broken down by grade groupings, as you can see at the top. And then you see the different categories. And this, in my opinion, as a dietitian, is where we're still a little bit outdated. Milk continues to have its own category, but then we have this protein category called meat alternate. We all know that milk's the dairy, or it's protein, right? So I think some of that's a little bit unchanged from the 30 years kind of grouping of food groups. So there's 5 food groups that we considered components. And then the last thing I'll kind of bring your attention to is we have daily and weekly standards, but we also have those calorie, saturated fat, trans fat, and sodium limits. So those are the nutrient caps that we have to make sure that all of our menus meet as well. So let's go to the next slide. This is also part of that handout. It's just another way to kind of show you guys from a tray perspective about how the minimum requirements that we're supposed to provide every day to those student grade groupings there over the day, but also over the total week. And then as I mentioned on the bottom, there's those vegetable subgroups that we have to meet. A lot of times in the past, they've been done with offering of a salad bar. That's where we meet those vegetable subgroups. And with COVID, it's obviously been a little bit of a challenge there. But we still can meet those with sending meals home if that's what we're doing. So let's go to the next slide. Now with that, the real key here is what we call a reimbursable meal. And so this graphic that you see here is what's representative of a reimbursable meal. So if you were to walk into any cafeteria within the Elko School District, you would probably see some type of sign that would show the students how to create a reimbursable meal. And as I mentioned, there's kind of those 5 food groups. A lot of times those food groups, like a pizza, it's representative of a grain, a meat alternate. So our entrees a lot of times capture multiple food groups, obviously. So every student, again, has to pick 3. And then in order to be reimbursable, they have to take at least a half a cup of fruit or vegetable. Pretty much standard across breakfast and lunch. Sometimes what you'll see it with food waste is that we have to make the high schooler take an apple. And sometimes it's a little heartbreaking to see them throw it right in the trash. And it happens, but that is the nature of the program. And or again, in order to claim that meal, the student needs to take a fruit or vegetable. The other thing I'll just show you here in this list is we can't serve any fried foods. We do our best to offer all low sugar, milks and cereals and that kind of stuff where we can. In fact, we offer cereal that you can't even buy in stores at 25% reduced sugar. And then, we're working on getting more towards reduced sodium. And I will tell you it's difficult because The nature of child nutrition is that most of our products are manufactured specifically to meet the regulations to credit a certain way towards this meal pattern. And so with that, it really goes back to the manufacturer to make the reduction in the sodium to really get everybody to where we need to be. So there's going to be a big industry shift there as well. So as food scientists, they've got an important role working for Kellogg someday through that CTE program. Joe, do you want to talk about this slide, or do you want me to talk about this with the commodities and the purchasing? You want to take it?
Go ahead. No, go ahead if
Okay.
you want. And then if you have any question, you want me to fill in anything, feel free to just throw it at me.
Sure. So I'll just keep this pretty high level for you guys, but this is a pretty important part of the program. I'm going to just throw the joke out there that I think everybody knows about school lunch, like, oh, the government cheese. The government cheese isn't so bad these days, right? And so what the USDA food program is there's kind of two different versions, right? There's a commodity version where we get, certain brown box items or things like diced chicken that show up in the quesadillas. And so there's a certain entitlement dollars that are allocated to that every year. And then we also can buy produce through the Department of Defense. I know it's kind of strange to think produce through military, but it is really set up that way. They've got good quality produce and a pretty diverse variety that we can buy from them. With that, then, we go and partner with different manufacturers. We have a massive company called Food Buy, which is one of the benefits of working with us, is that we have such large purchasing power that we're able to kind of get ahead of, for example, like the supply chain that we've been dealing with, and Steve's had to navigate. It's been really difficult. And so Food Buy has been an excellent partner in helping us get to that quicker and making sure that we're getting the kids the food that they need every day. And then finally, we also buy locally from Bimbo, and then we get our milk items from local vendors as well. We'll go to the next slide. And I think I pass it over to Joe to really sum it up for us with the trilemma.
Yes. Yes, and I think the only thing that I'll add to that food distribution piece is that is another form of revenue to the program. So as Betsy said, it's allocated in an annual allotment every year, and it's based on the number of meals that we serve, which kind of plays into this next slide. So the more reimbursable lunches we serve every year, times the rate for the commodity allocation, which I think is around 28 cents a meal right now, the higher the revenue stream to the district, which helps offset costs of the program. So, when we talk about the trilemma, there's three things that affect the business of running food service in a school district: participation, expenses, and compliance. And typically, when you look at participation, you're trying to market the program, you're trying to menu things that are going to be attractive to the students. You've got to put food out there that they want to eat. And then if we go backwards and we look at compliance, we've got all of those regulatory pieces that Betsy presented to us. And we've got caloric minimums and maximums. We've got, maximums that we can hit on sodium and everything. But if we get so compliant that we're hitting the high end of those structures, what's the food going to look like, even with the best represented menu? And how's that going to affect the participation? So if we stray to the extreme compliance issues, what's that do to the participation? Do we put out a product and a service that isn't going to be match the kids' palates? And are they actually going to want to participate in that program? And then the cost structures. Typically, as the compliance piece goes up and the requirements become stricter, the industries that supply us with the food have to catch up. So at the onset, just like anything, I remember when I was a kid and a handheld Texas Instruments calculator back in the mid 70s was like $200 or $300, and you go to Walgreens and buy them for $8.99 now, right? So so that cost structure, as the compliance issues go up, the costs go up with it, and you've got to balance that out. And then so for what the school district is reimbursed for each meal plus the commodities, they have to pay for food, they have to pay for labor, and they have to pay for all of the other expenses that are associated with running that program. Now, when you partner with the management company, we take on some of that responsibility. And so, we help do that, and working with the management company really helps you build efficiency. And it helps bring the industry standards, the best of the best, to a school district that, a school district doesn't always have the opportunity. A district that's running their own program doesn't necessarily have the bandwidth and the support system. There's not a Betsy Myers. We have our marketing people, Leah and Monica. We have our regional executive chef, Bruce. We have a whole host of people behind those folks supporting all of this legislative activity and keeping us informed. So a school district that's running their own program has to do that all by themselves. So what is this trilemma issue? So it's really easy to get high participation and keep the costs in line. It's really easy to keep the costs in line and run compliance at an average rate. And if you run your compliance at an average rate, the participation will probably remain high. But if we run our compliance at a high rate, the cost is going to go up. The participation is probably going to go down because we're going to be serving food that isn't going to be as palatable to the kids as a traditional menu. I really run by the theory that the healthiest food in the world is useless if the kids won't eat it, right? So if we can't get them to participate and to consume the food, you know, having them take it is one thing, but having them eat it once they get it. Betsy used the example of the kids that don't want to take the fruit or vegetable and they take an apple just so that they can have a reimbursable meal. Otherwise, you know, we have to get them to take a fruit or vegetable, you know, so otherwise we can't claim the meal. We're just giving away food and the meal can't be claimed. And then there's no reimbursement to the district for that meal. But what's the use if they take it and throw it in the garbage before they even sit down? Just walk past and throw it in the garbage. Or in some cases where we have share tables, they'll put it on a share table. Probably with COVID now, the share table systems are pretty shut down for the moment. But, you know, so what use is that to the student if they won't participate? And when you see those calories, we get a lot of questions about, you know, my kid is hungry and they say that there wasn't enough food. And then when we talk to parents and we explain, all right, here's the program and here's all the choices, and they have the 5 choices. They can decline 2 of them. They have to take 3. One has to be a fruit or a vegetable. So when you look at, and it's typically the high school students, when you look at a high school student that takes a piece of pizza, which meets the grain and the protein requirement, and then they take an apple, which meets the fruit requirement, they don't have to have a milk, they don't have to have another vegetable. And if they toss the apple, eat the pizza, and drink the milk, yeah, they're not getting the maximum calories that are allocated to that meal. They're getting what's the minimum that they can take. So it makes sense that they're going to be hungry. So we've got to teach them the importance of taking all of the food groups and making it work. And also we've got to give them a meal that's going to entice them to eat everything that they're given. So the trilemma here is that you can usually do 2 of these, and it's really hard to do all 3 at once. Finding that middle ground takes a lot of work. I think you hit it from time to time, but I think you always have to be cautious. It's a little bit like a game of whack-a-mole. If your compliance you're in good shape with your compliance and your participation is high, keep an eye on that cost over there because it might jump up and it's going to take over for you. So, you know, if the costs are too low, are we offering a menu that is going to be acceptable to the students? Are we looking at menu variety and quality that is going to meet the needs of the students? And is it going to be compliant? So that really is the entire puzzle, the game that we try to balance every single day. So with that, we've thrown a lot of information at you. We promise there is no written test, but we're certainly able to answer any questions that you have. If you can go to the next slide, please, Steve. Adrian, as I said, isn't here, but this is Adrian's contact information, and he knows how to get a hold of any or all of us, as does Steve. So we're here to answer any questions. So Steve, you can end the presentation, and we'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you all.
Any questions from the board?
What what percentage of reimbursable meals are we at?
Well, we haven't done any reimbursable meals since COVID started.
Because they're all free.
Correct.
Okay. Previous to that, do you have? Please go ahead.
I'm sorry. They technically are all reimbursable meals. So with them being free, I think if you look at them pre-COVID, so prior to February of 2020, Steve, you had just gotten to the district at that point, but I don't know if you know what the overall percentage of participation was then. And now I would assume that it's higher. One of the things that happens whenever the ability for students to get meals for free is your categories of free and reduced students who eat, that category doesn't typically go up, but the students who typically have to pay, that category goes very high, because when all of a sudden, when they don't have to pay, that's new to them. So they start participating in greater numbers. So Steve, I'll back off now, and I'll let you, if you happen to know that pre-COVID number. I don't know if you have that data.
I don't.
Yeah, but we can certainly find that out and get it back to you guys.
That's fine. It was just kind of more of a curiosity to see what type of educational program we may need to do with our parents, but more importantly with the consumers directly, the kids, to say, hey, this is why we do this.
Yeah. And it definitely varies throughout the school district. So there are some schools, once they break a number, and I want to say it's about 50% of free and reduced, then the whole school goes free. And so I believe before COVID, that was South Side and Hawaii.
Okay.
And I think since then that a couple more schools have broken that.
Okay. I just this week, actually, it was kind of ironic that just yesterday, it was kind of ironic that we have this discussion, because I had 3 different parents contact me or visit with me, and they said that I guess it's International Week or something, or maybe it was last week, but they said the kids had bok choy. And I was like, wow, all right. That's, I mean, I remember working in a grocery store when it would come through, we're like, what is this? So I applaud the trying something different, trying to get kids to try something new. And I can understand what the participation side might be like when you offer bok choy, or I guess there was a beet and apple salad or something. And
It was.
And so, I mean, these kind of things, I appreciate trying to find those happy mediums to deal with the trilemma. On my business side at the senior center, we work with the exact same things. We can offer hot dogs and have 120 seniors, but the state only lets us do it once a month. So if we could do it 5 days a week, we'd have people in the senior center all the time. So I can understand that. And I appreciate trying to work on that. And I wish you luck in trying to solve that trilemma issue, and please let us know what we can do.
All of us do every
help.
year. So. Well, thank you.
Any other questions?
And I'll just share, we have a toolkit for you guys that we use through Social Press Kit, where every year we can put out information to your social media channels, however you guys want, in terms of those free and reduced applications, just to help spread the education to parents. Because I think sometimes they don't want to share it just because they don't want to disclose income information, but it's really limited to what they actually have to share in order to get their kids into the program. So just wanted to put that out there. And again, thank you for having us.
Yep.
And thank you also for the goodies that we had last meeting.
You're welcome.
I think we didn't get a chance to recognize that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And thanks for joining us virtually. We're glad to have you any way you can come and join us. All right, we'll move on to item 1.7, input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. A speaker's time may not be reserved, divided, apportioned, or deferred. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been included specifically on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken. Do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to make a public comment? All right, I know we have one that was emailed, so we'll go ahead with that one.
Hello, my name is Catherine Kelly, and I am a member of the ECSD community. More than that, I am a mom and a teacher. I'm requesting clarification on specific agenda items. I am encouraging that my email comment be read at the first public comment so that, per my understanding, there should be the ability to comment and address my questions and concerns during the time when these agenda items are discussed. It's the board wishes to, they may end my public comment here and read the specific item agendas listed below during the time when public comment is allowed on those specific items. Item 2.02, if this is the group that we used with Xander, I am nervous, as many I believe are. Please make sure that you are as transparent as legally possible with why we are consulting these outside services instead of hiring internally. There needs to be clarity in why the services are being outsourced, especially when outsourcing costs more money and we are being told that we are in a deficit. 2.03. I believe that an outside party would be a good recommendation, but there needs to be a time limit set on this and a budget as well. Too often outside contracts are extended and the budgets balloon, which we simply do not have the money for. 2.04. Please do whatever is necessary to make sure that our students in Montello have adequate services. But as discussed in previous meetings, the budget is very tight and no extra things should be added unless necessary. You must rebuild your financial trust with the community or bond after bond will continue to fail. 2.05. I assume that legal has been consulted on this, but keep in mind that if we are trying to regain trust with the community, restricted further on recording laws may prevent this. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you are able to address the concerns that me and others like me have.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, and we will, I appreciate that divided out because we can certainly address those when they come up in our action items. We'll move on to item 2.1, discussion and consideration of the acceptance of a 2006 84-passenger Thomas bus with great appreciation to the Eureka County School District for the donation of the bus to the Elko County School District. This is for possible action. All right. Mr. Anderson.
I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I can give context, and if you have questions about the vehicle itself, I have some information I can try to share as well. So
Yes and yes.
okay. Awesome.
Just context of, so what was given was that they basically were giving us a bus. Is there, I hate to sound like there's ill will involved, but that is not my intent. My intent is just to figure out, is there maintenance that needs to be done on this? Is that, or do we anticipate a lot of maintenance in the future? Are there seats? I don't, like, basically just generally like what's
Why
the
would
state of this
someone want
bus?
to give us a bus is what you're getting.
Yeah,
at.
yeah. You know, nobody's ever
Yeah.
given me a bus.
No, so Tate, the superintendent over there, real nice guy. He likes us here in Elko. So just, you know, he wouldn't throw something at us. That's no good. But Eureka, without, you know, getting too much into their finances versus ours, Eureka's got a nice healthy fleet of buses, and they've had some, you know, funding that's made it possible for them to have a more youthful fleet of buses. So occasionally things like this will happen. A school district that has excess is willing to donate to those who have need. And so they approved this at their board meeting. The bus itself, you know, not knowing everything about the bus, I asked Seth Canning, our transportation director, and asked him to just give me a little rundown of the bus. I'm just going to read you what Seth said. Okay. So he said the bus has been garaged its whole life, as with all Eureka buses. So their buses don't sit out in the open. They're garaged. Mechanically, it has no issues and everything is in working order. No current repairs are needed. The maintenance cost will be the same as 10 of our current CAT engine buses. So it's a similar type bus to 10 others that we have. We currently stock all the needed filters for this bus already. We have diagnostic tools for this bus already. Eureka will also be including any parts they have that are specific to this bus replacement. To this bus. Replacement parts are readily available through our current suppliers. The only upfront costs will be in the change to vinyl lettering for the district bus name and number. And then which is going to be a pretty minimal cost. And then the titling and registration of the bus also, which will be minimal. So the bus has been inspected and vetted, so to speak, and it seems to be in pretty awesome shape and would be a good addition to what we have. We're not taking on a lemon or anything like that.
Just trying to make sure.
It
No,
will be
thank you.
yellow though. It will be yellow like a lemon, but not the other way.
I appreciate Seth's report on that.
For sure.
And not that, I'm not saying this about anybody else that I've had questions on, but that makes it so that I have very little questions off of that report. So thank you for the detail and the in-depth on that. I appreciate that.
He begged me to attend the meeting, but I said he didn't have to. So he gave me the verbiage and hopefully I made it clear. I don't know what a CAT bus is, but sounds right.
It's the type of engine. It's a good one. All right, how would the board like to proceed?
I move to accept the 2006 84 passenger bus from Eureka County School District.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, I just want to say thank you to Superintendent Else and the Eureka County School Board of Trustees for this donation. This is awesome, and we appreciate being good neighbors with Eureka County. So with the motion on the floor and no further discussion,
Can I make one comment?
Please, make a
Just, I
comment.
mean, school buses are expensive. Julie, a brand new school bus would be, aren't they somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000, something like a couple $100,000? Yeah, so a brand new school bus costs us $184,000. And the one we're getting, just like most vehicles, they depreciate in value over time. If it were to be assessed for value, it's got about a $10,000 value right now. And so we're getting a bus that's in good working condition, not needing repair, and saving us in a time where we have been stressing a bit over money, saving us nearly $200,000. So just gives more context to that.
Awesome. Again, thank you to Eureka County. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that motion is approved. Item 2.2 is discussion and possible approval of consulting agreement with PCR Consulting Incorporated for examination and analysis of telecommunication and utilities accounts for the purpose of finding billing errors, excess of inaccurate charges and expenditures, unnecessary and duplicate costs, and other potential business savings related to the accounts. Julie, I'm glad you're here to discuss all of that with us.
Yeah, so we were approached by PCR Consulting. They worked with Lyon County School District, and I guess that resulted in some significant savings. And I reached out to Lyon School District and confirmed that they hired them and have been satisfied and have had good results. So what they do is they dig through all the utility billings. They look for miscellaneous charges that you shouldn't have, which are notorious on things like cell phones. And they make sure your utility bills are calculated with the accurate rates. To answer the question in the public comment, this is not related to Xander Consulting at all. This is a separate company, and they don't cost anything really. If they find savings and the district decides to move forward, they get a percentage of the savings for 2 years. So either way, we have savings. If they don't find anything and there's no savings, we don't pay them. So it seemed like a win-win.
Questions from the board?
Maybe you could talk about why we have to go to a consulting firm
Well,
instead of.
It's, I guess our staff, we have 2 people who process AP for over 25 schools. 30 by time you include just all the other central locations we have. And we wouldn't know if the AT&T bill charged us 35 cents instead of 32 cents per minute or however they do. We wouldn't know that, but this company would. So this is more specialized, not something we could really do in-house.
Thank you.
Thank you, because that was my first question as well, and goes along with public comment and with Susan as well. Is there anybody that can do this in-house? It sounds like no.
No.
So the next question would be, is there anyone within the district that we know of that operates a business similar to this, or that would be willing to provide services like this?
I don't know. Would they be willing to do it for free if they don't find anything? I don't know.
Hearing what this is about and knowing that now hopefully somebody maybe out there is like, I can do that. I don't know if we wait for 2 weeks. I don't know if PCR would be willing to give us that time. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a motion. I'm just saying that that may be something to discuss. But I'll be honest with you, we've been talking about substitute teachers for how long, and I don't know that we've gotten substitute teachers. And I'm not saying a teaching job is easy by any means, but analyzing hundreds of utility bills is not going to be a fun job either. So I don't know that we're going to get anybody to step up within the district.
I don't know who else would have the expertise to look at energy bills, water bills, cell phone bills, hotspot bills. Like, it's very in-depth, and I don't know who else would do that.
Okay. So then here are my thoughts before a motion is made. I like that the savings expire. That after 2 years, we get 100% of those savings once that's there. I think that's definitely positive. Hopefully, all of the utility companies aren't smart enough to wait 48 months and then say, great, we're going to jack up the prices again. But I do like that. And that there's no upfront costs.
No.
So I do like that a lot. However, and I understand that this is business. I don't like that we're governed under the laws of California, that's where arbitration is. That's always something that is just makes me very cautious. Their laws are way different than ours, and they have a lot more complications. To make it simple, the other thing that I'm concerned with is there's a clause in there that says that we can't have direct discussion with our providers. Losing that ability to have direct conversations, particularly when there are so many of our providers that are local, that's something that's of concern to me. Somebody from out of state, out of the area may approach it where we would differently than what we would do. We may approach it with more finesse. If we proceed with this, I'd like for somebody to say, hey, these are our neighbors. We need to make sure that we're in their business. I'm not saying they're unprofessional by any means, but there's a way that big city handles it differently than, hey, Joe, tell me about this bill. So that's just something that I'm just want to bring out.
And I'm sure legal can look at this before anything's signed. I think that's meant to prevent us saying, oh no,
Running
we
and then-
handled this savings and now we're not going to pay you.
Right. And I can completely understand legally why they would have that in there. And I just want us to be careful on that. The last thing that I have is that if we proceed with this, in here, it says that we need to write a letter of authorization for each utility company. It may be prudent at that point in time to also generate a revocation to the exact same, so that when we're ready to terminate, if and when we're ready, it's already there. We don't have to then backtrack to say, okay, who did we send this to? Who did we not?
Mhm.
We have it ready to go. And again, not that we're going to terminate the agreement, but at some point we may, and then we don't, it's ready to go, and we can immediately send it out with hopefully a quick turnaround so that we have access again.
Yep.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
Has legal looked at this?
Not yet. I wasn't going to send anything to them without approval from you first.
Yeah, my question is kind of about that too, as well as like due within 15 days. Is this feasible for us? I know that things have to be approved and whatnot. And then also just the percentage that they'll collect. So I don't know what is changeable on this too as well. It's just like Matt was
Well,
going
they
on.
might negotiate. I'm not sure.
Okay, so it's a good start, because again, I circled California like 2 or 3 times too, because I know their laws are quite different than ours. So, and then, yeah, and that's all I had on that too.
In your discussions with Lyon County, did they have any issues that really came up with any of the things that these guys have talked about? Anything that they said, oh man, we wish we had the ability to do this, or, they really
No.
wrecked some relations we have with some of our local, distributors, anything like that?
No, the impression I got was they're going to see some significant savings going forward, which is good when everybody's budgets are tight.
All right. How would the board like to proceed on this item?
Approving this, we can still get legal to look at it and we're not bound by anything.
No, I think you can approve maybe legal looking at it and then we can bring it back, or you can say if legal signs off, it can be signed by the superintendent. That's up to you. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
I think that's a good idea. I'd say we run it through legal. See where it's at, see what we want to do, see what they, and if you can, see if they can, if you can negotiate some of that. Like the 45% and some of those times. And I think that's a great idea.
And in the meantime, if there's someone in the county, and when I said previously in the district, I'm not saying a district employee, I'm just saying the boundaries of our district. If there's somebody that can do something like this, I'm not saying it's necessarily an open bid, but we don't know what we don't know. So not directed at you or anyone else other than the public. If you can do this, then please let the district know, because I think that this is in concept a great idea, and pending legal approval, I see no reason why we wouldn't move forward with this. So Madam Chair,
Yes.
move to table this for a period of 2 weeks or until our next regularly scheduled board meeting, if that gives enough time for legal.
second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All in favor of tabling this until our next meeting, pending approval by legal, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, chair votes aye, and we will see this again on our next agenda. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
All right, we'll move to item 2.3, receipt, review, and possible acceptance of the proposal provided by MGT to update Elko County School District's facility master plan.
Yeah, we received the proposal last week. It's $231,000 to review all facilities, go meet with our directors, look at our educational plan, and also have a lot of community meetings. And, report will be done in November.
All right. Questions?
I'll jump in, guys. All right, here we go. Thank you for getting this. I know that that's the direction we kind of asked about last time. When was the last time something like this was done and who did it?
I don't know who did it, 'cause I don't have it in front of me, but it was 1999.
Okay. And then this is not something that I would anticipate you to have, and I don't even know that CJ or anybody else in the central office is going to have, but reading through this, there's going to be some pretty significant impacts to the productivity of our employees. Do we have an estimate as to what that's going to actually look like? The site visits on their own, is that typically done in a day? Are we talking about administrators? Because it says in here, administrators are going to be present. Are we losing them for a week? What's a typical look? I mean, what does this look like? Yeah, it's a direct cost of $231 or $1,000, but what else are we looking at for staff time?
My guess would be meeting with the local administrators for about an hour on site, and then meet with the building soup, be taking around the facility, looking at the conditions.
Okay.
But I'm just guessing.
So Matt, I would liken it to, so for example, when I was just recently in Wells and we had that big mechanical upgrade that they were working on. And I would have, ahead of the project being, beginning, I'd have an occasional, maybe 2 or 3 meetings where I, if I was available, I would speak with an engineer that was coming to look at things. But primarily, I leaned on my building superintendent to, because they would want to have tours and to inspect things and kind of start to gauge different ideas of what they're having. And so even though that was for a specific project, I imagine it'd be something similar. I was always invited, and if I couldn't make it, maybe I'd have my VP go. But oftentimes it mostly just leaned on the building superintendent, who had an intricate knowledge of where all the panels are and where all the everything is and how to get up to what level of the roof and all that stuff. So I suppose it would be something similar. I never felt burdened when they were coming to our campus. It was always pretty brief.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that the last time in 1999, when we had done this, there was a similar demographic projection study. And in fact, I saw something recently, and I don't recall where. It may have been something that was provided in board notes or board docs at the past three meetings. I'm cautious on some of the projection levels. And so if we go forward with this, I would much rather have a conservative number than something that makes it look like we're going to need 8 more schools in the next 10 years, because our enrollment has been fairly flat for 20 years. Roughly 10,000 students in 2001, 9,500 students in 2010. We're at roughly 10,000 students now. But whatever it was that I looked at, I think they had projected that we were going to be close to 14,000 students or something. And that's, I think most of Elko County in the government side recognizes the state demographer seems to always get it wrong on our end. And I don't want this to be another issue where we're looking at planning for 15,000 students when, for whatever reason, even when we haven't had a huge disastrous drop in gold, we're still at 10,000 students. So I just caution on that. And this is not a question necessarily for you, but just something to make sure that please express, if we move forward with them, that we need to be able to have a number that we can stand behind as we move forward on that. The 7 attendance issue or areas that are in here, I'm assuming those are Carlin, Elko, Jackpot, Owyhee, Spring Creek, Wells, and West Wendover.
I believe so.
And in here, it says that they'll do 7 in-person or on-site and 7 virtual. I'm hopeful that that means that each of those communities will get 1 of each, and not necessarily the big dogs of Spring Creek and Elko getting 2 in person and somebody else getting all virtual. So I'd like some clarification
That's
on
the
that.
intent when I talk to them.
Okay, because I think it's important that all of our communities have that ability to do face-to-face. At the bottom of page 25, within the contract, it says, or within the agreement, it says that there should be local experts to help facilitate dealing with the actual. I read that kind of as a project manager almost. Do we have these local experts within the district, or are we looking at hiring someone outside the district to facilitate this process?
I would assume that would fall into me.
Okay.
Our local expert is standing in front of us.
Great. And I kind of figured that. I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to be, yes, we're going in here. Oh, hey, now, by the way, we're needing something else. Another consultant. Is this an take it or leave it, all or nothing? Or is there a way to say, okay, great, we really like task 3. So do tasks 1, 2, and 3, and then let's reanalyze or reassess and see where we are later before we move on to tasks 4 through 10.
They all kind of work together to come to the final product.
Okay.
I mean, because part of what curriculum we're going to use, what's our growth rate, what's the age and condition of the facilities. So they all have a component to the final output. So I really don't see how you can really take something out. You're just pulling away one of the variables that's critical to the final product.
I was kind of afraid of that, and I recognize that there is some intermixing in there. Task 4 is the one that I'm right now most interested in seeing, and that's the facilities condition and suitability assessments. That's also happens to be the most expensive at almost $100,000. So I just wanted to know kind of where we stood on that. Within there, they have some firm key dates. Are there financial incentives to keep them on those key dates? If we're cooperative and we're able to give them what they need in time, if they miss a key date, are we able to say, okay, that's a financial cost to you now?
Well, if you call them liquidated damages if they're late. If you do that to be equitable, you also have to have incentives to be early. So do you want to pay if they're early or charge them if they're late?
I'd be happy to,
Services, we don't do that.
I'd be happy to say there's $231,000 for you guys to get it done early, but I recognize that there is a business side there. I just, if there's no incentive for them to not finish or no disincentive for them to not finish late, that's what I'm just concerned with. So I'll rely on our local expert to keep them on task. So
We'll try.
So just letting you know now, that's one of the expectations that I have if we move forward on this. The last question may be the hardest, and Julie and Mr. Anderson, perhaps you might be able to answer this better. Where's this money coming from? I'm assuming we haven't budgeted this. Can this come from pay as you go?
We believe it can,
Okay,
because it is going towards our capital facilities.
okay. So we're not going to have to cut something in order to pay for this, provided we can do the pay as you go.
Right.
Okay, I think I'm finished, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
What,
go ahead, Ira.
what's your take on this? I mean, spend $231,000 and what we're going to get out of it, is it? You're our resident expert.
Well, by having an independent third party, I think we get that transparency like we kind of talked about. We probably have the resources on staff to do it. Might take us 3 years though, along with our day jobs. So it's me a lot of information, a lot of gathering, and having an independent third party. I wish it was less expensive, but I'm not really surprised that it was this high. It's kind of going right.
The going rate for what we'd get out of it is what,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, and Jeff, we've got you on Zoom and you had a comment on this item?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted, this is actually one of the first items I really wanted to weigh in on. I expressed in the last meeting some skepticism for it, or why do we really need it? And I think Matt hit the nail on the head there, but we're steady enrollment, right? We're 10,000 for the last 20 years. I think that's a reason that they haven't done this before. Another issue I have with them finding building conditions and things like that, should we not have that information already? Isn't that in-house? We should know how old our furnaces are and how old the roof is and things of that nature. I don't see paying $230,000 to get information that I believe we should already have in-house. In scanning through that too, it looked like there could be extra charges for more travel. There was a disclaimer with COVID and travel restrictions, and that if there was more on-site or things like that, that would also adjust the price to kind of feed into something you had said there, Matt, about the cost. But yeah, I'm really having a hard time seeing the value when we don't know where we're going, if COVID is over yet or not, if there's going to be different things like that. I think we're pretty steady, and we should hang on to that money for something that really needs it, like a roof. That's my take on the issue.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions or comments from the board, or are you ready to proceed in some manner?
If I could just add, oh, sorry, one comment real quick. Matt, when you were making your comments, I wanted to clarify that we are not strapped into doing anything exactly the way they plan on doing it. If we want, my understanding anyway from talking with Casey is if they are hired as our consultants, we kind of tell them what we need and want them to do. And so if we have, just the example of the meetings, 7 virtual, 7 in person, like we tell them how we want to run those. We tell them how we want to evaluate things, what we're trying to get out of this. Like they work for us once they're hired. And so this is a wonderful document that shows everything they can do. It shows anticipated timelines, et cetera. But in the end, we utilize them how we want to utilize them. So we would have, if there are certain elements of it that you're concerned about, or you think maybe aren't the best use of time or funds or whatever, then we can, there is some flexibility. I mean, they do what they do, but they do work for us in that scenario. So I think we have some flexibility to tell them what we need from them.
So it kind of goes to my question as far as like the visitations and those types of things. So can we ask them for more of those? Like, so we have more sites, or this is all a lot of this can be changed in that sense where if we need to have more site visits, we can have those. And does that add to the cost of the
Does
total
add to the
there?
cost.
Okay.
What they presented is the 231,000. Add or subtract, we can take away or add to it cost wise.
Okay.
Josh, somewhere in there, there was a part that mentioned if they had to do more on-site visits.
They would
that
add
bring up
to
the
it. Okay.
cost.
I did read it, but I
know.
just, yeah, there's a
It's
lot
hard to
there. It's like a
remember
30
everything
page
that's in there.
document.
Hard to remember all
So
of it.
yeah, it was read. It was, but then that leads me to the other thing, you know, with as much detail, just like you've said, it's easy to say we have data everywhere. It's harder to get all that data together. We run into that quite frequently in our clinic as well. Other business folks that I talk to, they have that same problem too as well. You know, should we have it? Sure. Can we compile that data so that it's effective? Definitely. And, you know, a big thing that we continue to hear about is transparency. And, you know, if we're creating that data, then there's that thought that it might not be as accurate by the public. So if we have a third party doing it, then we can actually, we're absolved of that they can look at it and they can see that data that's in front of them, and hopefully they can make some more decisions. And there's another thing that I was just talking with a group of friends with, is that's that other set of eyes. You know, there's so many things that we are looking at as an organization. And if we have another set of eyes outside of that organization, they might be able to see some things that we might not be paying attention to, or some things that might make our lives easier. So for those that, you know, are questioning, why are you bringing third parties in? It's because we need to have another set of eyes on things so that we can see things that we can't see. You don't know what you don't know. And these third parties, a lot of them, what I'm seeing is they're designed to do that. These guys, that's what their bread and butter is to find out what do we have, where are we going, what can we do? Same thing with previous items too as well. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree with you. I think it's important to have that third eye, have a group look at it. And when you were talking about the last time it was done, you know, we had talked about that committee, that parent group and parents. There was, what I say, 40 people that were on that committee. And then they have something to look at, then, you know, we can look at that as community members, whatever. And just to back up a minute, the cost of this, and if we have a group look at it like last time, they do not get paid to look at that, because those are some comments I heard as well. It was like, oh, all those committee members, they were part of whatever, I forget how much it was last time, or maybe a number was brought up, but they're like, oh, someone's gonna get that? No. They just look, they are volunteers. So I just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned as well.
Casey, to Jeff's point, what does our inventory look like as far as knowing what equipment we have, ensuring that we've been keeping up with preventative maintenance? How accurate is that right now? And I'll be honest with you, coming in new, I have no idea how long you've been here. This is not necessarily trying to be, you know, why hasn't this been done? It's just, do we have it?
I've been here 5 years.
Okay.
But we have a facilities book with all the information on all of our new buildings, old buildings, boiler replacements. I can tell you when every boiler has been replaced in the district. So we keep track of all that information. As far as the day-to-day maintenance, that's all done by the site building soups. Any major maintenance is done by our journeyman out of my group.
Okay. I'm assuming that the building superintendents, do they report back to you?
They report up to the principal, but we work with them on a daily basis.
Okay. So I guess then, does the principal ensure that preventative maintenance is getting done, or does that fall back to your team? Who inspects the inspectors? Because if
our journeymen are on sites, nobody's checking every single thing they do. I mean, they go look at a boiler, see if it's operating, see if the filter's been changed in the last 6 months.
Right.
But we don't have checks for checkers. I mean, we've got to rely on people to do their jobs.
Okay. And absolutely, I get that. I think you answered it. If the journeymen are going out there, and if they'll know whether or not PM has been done on a piece of equipment. So I appreciate that. So thank you for the insight. Please remind me, is there pay-as-you-go right now? What are we anticipating it to end at?
What we're anticipating right now, the science CTE building out Spring Creek will be about 4 million. And we're really rough estimate. We're erring on the high side on that one, but that would leave us about 14 million.
Okay, so we have about 18 million now.
Correct.
So
It will be by July 1.
okay, roughly. And I'm not trying to hold you to that. So because I do like to crunch numbers, if we, prior to going to the FFA, the ag building, if we are able to use pay-as-you-go funds for this, we're at about 1.3% of the fund. So overall, that's $231,000 is a lot of money. But when we look at it in context, it's 1.3% of the fund. Jeff, I certainly agree that I think there are some things that you said that I agree with. I'd rather not be spending this money, but I think I'm erring more on the side of what Josh was saying. We've got to have transparency. Having a third party look at it would probably be good. I just don't want this sitting on a shelf. I want to make sure that this is something that we can use. And that's another caution I have, is that if we spend this money and they come back and say, great, here's your building plan, and in 2 or 3 or 4 years or whenever we can, we submit another bond issue and it fails, this is going to be out of date in just a few election cycles. So that's another hesitancy that I have, but I agree with what Josh and with what Susan have said, kind of that we need to move forward on this. I do anticipate that we're keeping them to task. So I am relying on you to be able to do that, to be that expert to say, here we are. On the travel thing, if I can visit, the 3 different communities in one day, then I would certainly say, great, when you come up here, you're spending a week up here to do all 7 of our visits together, instead of traveling, flying out once over 7 weeks and jacking up costs. Those kind of simple things that we can try to do to consolidate and save some money. I'm hoping that you can keep that.
Typically, we don't find them want to be away from home that often, so they'll try to get them all done in one shot.
I certainly hope so.
I'm assuming they know the setup of our county.
Yeah, I've sent them a lot of information, preliminary information. That was how they were able to pull this together.
And just based on the recommendations from other districts that were in there, they always said they were on time. I know we don't know that for sure, but that was in a lot of those. So I'm assuming that they'll follow their timeline that's given.
I did speak with Lyon County and they were very excited. We were very happy with what they've done. We've had them come back for the last 15 years. So.
Well, I guess my question is, you do this every day. Do you feel like this is a wise use of the funds that we have available, knowing the potential of, for other projects, potential maintenance? Do you think this is a good use of funds in the short term and the long term?
Yes. The biggest reason is, when we go back to the voters in 2024, we've got a document. Here's our plan. They can't really second guess what we're doing. It's been done by a professional group. It's current at this point. And it'd be nice to have a third set of eyes look at things, because there's stuff we see, you walk by it every day, you don't see it. So it'd be nice to see what they come up with.
Thank you. All right, does the board have any more questions, or are we ready to move in a direction on this item?
I want us to move forward, and I don't see, Madam Chair, I move that we accept the proposal provided by MGT to update the Elko County School District's facility master plan.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Thank you. Chair votes aye and the motion carries. Thank you, Casey, for the information.
Thank you, Casey.
Item 2.4 is discussion and possible direction of interim superintendent to review staff housing options in Montello. Mr. Anderson.
Hello. So this, there was recently a request so to assist with housing for our staff in Montello. The reason I brought this to the board, put it on the agenda, is because until very recently, we did not employ a teacher in Montello. Those students were going to either a combination of Wells or Wendover or homeschool. So it was the will of the board. I guess I was a principal at the time this happened, but it was the will of the board at that time that we provide Montello with schooling option, and we do everything we possibly could to procure a teacher and to get that school up and running again. And our wonderful Miss Turnahue really did a lot of work during the summer to make sure we had a teacher there, to make sure our teacher had everything she needed. At that time, everything we thought she needed. And, but, you know, there is a concern because there's not an abundance of housing options out there. And so because it was the will of the board to provide education to students in Montello, and this was a request made to go along with that, I wanted to bring it to you to decide if, so I've given you some attachments, which admittedly I did not acquire myself. I don't want to make it sound like I did all this work, but there are some pictures of the, there's an aerial view of the site. Everything within blue bordering is our property. And then there are some accompanying photos that show various utility connections and hookups. Casey can speak to those photos if you have any more questions about the lay of the land, so to speak. But basically the request and the consideration you need to make and vote on or discuss or whatever it is you would want to do with that is, does the district want to be responsible for supplying housing for staff that we employ in Montello?
So are we looking at building a house, bringing in a modular, an RV hookup? What are we looking at? What's the request? I mean, I see the photos, but what goes in the little blue box?
Casey, maybe I'll let you walk yourself back over there and he can answer that question for you.
I'm under the assumption that we'll put a single wide trailer in there.
Okay.
Standard 3-bedroom, 1-bath type thing, maybe a 2-bath. I'd made some phone calls to Salt Lake, kind of got some prices. That basic trailer is about $115,000, not including taxes, setup, and delivery.
So is that 115 or 150?
115.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Where's the teacher living now?
He's living in a travel trailer. Close to the school property.
Okay. I just know at one time the district, they had teacher housing because I lived in that and they wanted to get out of the business of housing. So I'm a little leery of having housing for one. So the other schools that are in a similar situation, like Jigs, like, do we have housing for any of those teachers or like that are in the one-room schoolhouse type situation?
I'm not sure about Jake. Ruby Valley, we do. I think there is actually a trailer at Jake's. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Independence Valley. I don't think anybody lives in it. There's a trailer there.
Yeah.
School.
That's not livable. Pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Hawaii.
Yeah, we have 4 apartments in Hawaii. As
And
well
those
as
are the
we
ones
rent
on
some from the
campus?
tribe.
Are those off campus or on campus? Because they have some stuff on campus.
4
too.
on campus, and I believe it's 16 off campus in Hawaii. I'm not exactly sure. We have rent them to the tribe.
Okay. Does the teacher also receive isolation pay like they do in Wendover?
Does get isolation pay and
what she's ran into is there's very little rentals in Montello. There are some houses that are vacant, but they're owned by families, and they're just not an option for rental.
They're not willing to rent to her.
Would they be willing to rent to the school district?
Good connections with the community, and she's just coming down short.
I'm not sure if they can hear you, Candace, since you're not at a microphone. I just want to make sure that those watching online can hear.
I just said that she's addressed, or she's approached some people in the community that she's made some really good connections with, and nothing has come through yet. So that's why she's asking us to look.
Okay.
Have you tried the Gamble Ranch? See if they've got something to rent, because they're the ones that really pushed it.
No.
Sometimes housing, sometimes it's open, sometimes it's not on those places. That might be a better option. The owner, his team's playing in the Super Bowl Sunday, so.
So maybe wait until after.
I would like to add right now that housing is very tough to come by in Montello all the way to Wendover. It's really hard to even get an apartment or anything right now. There's very low inventory, so it is a real issue. The price of the trailer seems a little high though. I mean, I guess if we buy new, but I see a lot of stuff around. It'd be the nicest trailer in Montello, probably.
I think it'd be better just, I mean, right now to maybe look just a little bit more. If the district is looking instead of the teacher, that might pack a little more weight.
And I would hope that this teacher would be here, be with the district for 30 years or, however long until she retires. But if circumstances change and next year we don't have a teacher and now we've got, by the time we move everything, do everything else, $150,000 trailer that's just sitting there, I'm just not comfortable with that right now. I think we do continue to explore options, use the full weight of the district, as Ira had said, and whatever resources we can. I can only imagine what the teacher is going through, and I appreciate her being there to begin with, and now having to struggle with this too. This is something I can, have empathy with, but right now I'm cautious.
Make sure you say 115.
Yes,
You said 150.
Right. I'm looking at
Make sure.
transportation, setup, everything else. I'm
Make sure.
assuming that it's going to be, $20,000-$30,000 just to get it there and set up.
I'm just gonna give you my rough ballpark estimate. It's probably gonna be closer to the $200,000 mark. We still got utilities. We got a trench in there. The utilities close, but we have still trench into the area, get a county permit. We don't know what conditions they'll put on that. So.
Was there ever teacher housing there?
Not that it doesn't look like it. The utilities that are there are either going by the property or over to the school. It doesn't look like there's any individual hookups.
So let me ask this, I'm sorry, I know you have the list of how many kids, are there 14 there, 15? So what is, so they'll probably be there for a while?
Oh, good point.
Okay.
She's in, and not to get too personal with her current situation, but she's in a travel trailer currently. Is she paying rent for the lot space? Is there a way to perhaps make this a kind of a dry camping area and she can at least stay on campus if she wants to help save some money? I don't know. I'm trying to find a solution that's going to work for her without costing us, a couple $100,000.
Could we also potentially just set it up so that for her use and potential future use, we could just have an RV hookup there next to campus,
right,
or a couple RV hookups? I mean, I don't guess that Montello will grow and we'll need more than one teacher, but you never know. Conditions as they are, people might want to get out, and maybe Montello is a great place to move to. But could we potentially look at having just an RV hookup on campus where we have some utilities close as a possibility.
We have the water and sewer very close, or excuse me, water and electricity very close there. There's no water treatment that I'm aware of in Montello, so we have to build a septic tank. So, I mean, it's possible to do that. Everything's pretty close.
Go ahead, sorry.
I think there's a sewer pond there.
Is there a sewer pond? Okay. It wasn't
I
aware
don't
of it.
know whether or not it's.
In the picture, it looked like there was a sewer lid, but I've been in Montello enough time to haven't seen any plant or treatment, so.
Well, and could we just tie into whatever the existing sewage system is for the school?
Maybe. They're usually designed for the size of that facility
Yeah.
and without a lot of growth.
I'm just thinking that might, even if we had to, I don't know if it's got a septic or whatever it is, but if it had to be enlarged, that would definitely still be cheaper than, bringing in a whole nother house.
Enlarging an existing one would actually probably be more expensive than putting in a smaller one for a single family.
Okay.
But
Okay. It sounds like the board would like to do a little more research before approving putting in a house. Is that what I'm hearing from everyone?
Would you like that as a formal motion?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to table this item, item 2.04, discussion possible direction for interim superintendent to review staff housing options in Montello to a date to be determined by staff when they've been able to answer the questions that we've posed.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All right.
Attorney Hugh, if you'll just let the instructor know, we greatly appreciate the sacrifices she has made, and just be patient with us a little bit longer. We would appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'll call the Gamble Ranch and see if there's some available housing out there too. So
all right.
We'll continue to work on it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. There's no other discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of tabling this until we have more information, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Chair votes aye, and we will revisit this at a later time when we have more information. And yes, again, thank you to the teacher out there and to the community of Montello. Getting a school up and running is kind of a big project, and we appreciate Ms. Turner as well tackling that, and everyone else who is part of it. Item 2.5 is receipt, review, and possible approval of revision to policy GDG03 for possible action.
All right, so something we haven't done much since y'all have started here is policy revisions and reviews. I know there's been a little bit, but one of our responsibilities is to go through and review what policies we have and how they're, sometimes policies get written and then in practice, things get carried out a little differently. And so you try to review things, keep up with NRS and that sort of thing. So there's some changes to this policy. We've detailed them all there and read and with the strike throughs, and I can answer any questions you may have about this revision. It has been run through legal. That was one of the questions that I guess you didn't ask, but Catherine made an assertion that we'd done that, and I'd like to verify that we ran that through legal. Before I have you ask questions, if I can also address Catherine's concern with regards to building trust. This is not meant at all to, I could see how some people would read this and say, what are we trying to hide? This isn't about hiding anything. This is about having respectful relationships between people. That's staff with staff, that's staff with parents, that's staff with kids, that's kids with kids. I think it's fair to make an assumption that if someone comes to a situation in which they are going to surreptitiously record something or say, I'm going to talk to you, but I'm recording this, that kind of bears with it some some distrust. It bears with it, maybe some, you might even say as far as some malintent. And everyone deserves respect and the opportunity to have a respectful conversation. And so this doesn't remove the possibility for recording, as someone might assert, but it does put in place the opportunity for someone to say, well, I'm really not comfortable with that, or okay, you know, I'll be recording as well. I don't know, like that could carry itself out in different ways, and something to because I have seen situations like this carry out. This, I would anticipate that, for example, because the policy already existed that an employee to an employee that couldn't, like, this was already there, right? So it's extending it to all people. And I would imagine if I wouldn't imagine, I know that if as a principal, a student came to me and said, hey, so-and-so keeps following me around the hallways, recording me, you as a parent and that other kid would expect that I would do something to help protect them in that situation. They don't want to be recorded. Why am I being recorded, right? I would for sure step in as a principal and say, what's going on here? And I'd help resolve that and provide that person with that security. I think if a student reported to their parent or to us that such and such teacher is recording me in class, someone would have a big problem with that. Especially since I said, please stop recording me, right? So the same respect that a student would want from a student and that a student would want from a teacher, and a teacher would want from a teacher, the teacher should logically be able to have that same type of respect from a parent, from a student, from anyone. So that is kind of the nature of this policy, is to allow everyone a respectful and collegial working environment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions or discussion from the board on this?
Is this just changes in the district, or is this to align it with the NRS?
No, this is just to more align with desired practice, I guess I would say.
I appreciate some. Go ahead, Jeff.
I would like to just start off with a couple of things that I see the policy would actually be bad. I think right off, let's say a child is being bullied in school and they're tell somebody about it and they don't believe them, and so they take it upon themselves to record that secretly. They would actually be in a violation of a policy when they're the one being picked on. And I could see somebody using that, you know, we're in a day and age now where everybody's got a recording device in their pocket, in their hand, sometimes multiple. And we also have to remember that we're in public. This is public school. And in public, there is no expectation of privacy. I can see a couple of reasons why someone would want to record. And speaking to NRS, it is not illegal to secretly record as long as one person is party to the conversation. If I'm in a conversation with someone else, I can record that legally. So our policy really doesn't match what the law is there. And so what I'm curious, I get the respect factor, but the examples, CJ, that you listed are all things that were observable. They weren't secret recordings. They were observable. So this policy really wouldn't apply to that. So I'm wondering, I mean, what is the real purpose behind this policy, or what's it trying to prevent? Because I believe that all of our teachers, administrators, everybody should be held to a higher standard. I don't think that anybody should be going around recording people all the time, but if they do, it's not a crime. And I do see legitimate purpose for it. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I also see purpose for not having it. For instance, if somebody is, a student is recording another child, and then, you know, social media is everything. So they put it out on social media, and let's say it's a kid who's been in a custody battle and, you know, their privacy, then to me, we're not helping to protect our students. So I can see both sides, I guess, but I'm on the side of protecting those that are, plus, if you have people secretly recording, say in a classroom, that can be distracting for other kids that are going to know about it. And then that goes out online, and God, it's so hard anymore because you can take what you recorded and add to it, delete it, take a section out of it, and then it looks like something that it wasn't. So there's just, there's a lot to all of that.
Jeff, I hear what you're saying, and yes, you have some points there. But I would agree with Susan as well. I mean, my kid showed me the other day, or one of my employees' kids said they showed the other day where she asked if she could go to a friend's house or something. And she had changed her mom's response to show yes when her mom had said no. And she was just joking, but she took the snapshot and sent it back to her and said, "Hey, thanks for saying I could go." And it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, my preference, we wouldn't have any electronic devices in the schools. That's kind of, the boat has long sailed since that. But I think, and if I may, Madam Chair, I don't know if the rest of the board had seen this. I don't know if it was, I think it was sent to everybody, but 2 hours before the meeting began, didn't give us a lot of time. There was somebody that had sent something and said, they were concerned with what this was on transparency, and said, do not change or pass these changes. If you're doing something in the classes that can't stand up to the light of day, that'd be the only reason to pass these changes. I would wholeheartedly disagree with that. I understand the sentiment, but no, it is disruptive to classes. There are reasons not to record. And if we've given the ability to request permission to record, if a student has a legitimate reason for recording, if a parent has a legitimate reason for recording, we've given them the ability to record. We're not saying under no circumstances. And if that parent has a concern that somebody at the school is doing something they shouldn't be doing, they've requested permission, the permission has been denied, come back to the school board and let us know so that we can handle it, through our superintendent, interim or otherwise, and find out why is what's the circumstance. There's always two sides. And things are taken out of context daily at all levels of our society. I don't think we need to give, I'm not comfortable with saying, yep, record whatever you want. I think there needs to be restrictions. And I think that this is a fair enough reason to say, yes, here you are. Here are the conditions in which you can record.
I would encourage too, if someone's worried about the teacher side of it, like what they're teaching in their classroom, one, go visit that classroom, do a surprise visit, go in at the office, say, I would like to see such and such a classroom, and then do that for several times. You'll get a feel for what the teacher is like, I know they'll say, oh, they'll just stop doing, but if you do that on a regular basis, you'll find out. And then, like Matt said, they do have, there is a process to go through for grievance. But I'm with you, just to, I don't know, to have everybody say, yeah, we'll just record all the time. I mean, we've watched it just with an accident that happens. What's the first thing people do? They get out their phone, but they don't use it for 911. It's like, oh, let's record all of that. I just think that's a terrible message to send, it's like, if I'm being beat up, I certainly want someone to call 911. I don't want them to record it. They'll be able to tell by my face that I've been beat up. It's like, just call 911.
If I could just add a couple things as well. I appreciate the conversation and all your points. You included, Jeff. Glad you're able to tune in with us. So just to echo something Matt said, a lot of the things we put in place, whether it's policy or things in our student handbook in our schools, is to help maintain what we call the orderly process of the school day. And when you have situations where someone is, let's say in a situation where someone would have what they consider to be a legitimate purpose for the recording, but maybe we haven't come to an agreement and they just declare they're recording anyway. That's obviously going to cause disruption. It's going to cause tension. It's going to cause a problem. And if that student has a reason that they really feel like they need to be doing that, the mechanism for solving or resolving that problem should not be to record and aha somebody, but it should be to work with their administration and with the parent to resolve whatever that issue is and to give people an opportunity to solve the issue. I also wanted to echo what Susan said, and that is that we have, I was listening to the county commissioners meeting this week, and or I guess it was last week, and there were some various comments about what we're teaching in our schools and people either not knowing what we're teaching or alleging that we're teaching crazy things. And I would invite, and it's been out there, if you would like to see what your student's teacher is teaching, there is a simple process for doing that. And we are not gonna roll out red carpet or do anything crazy that day when you decide to come. Our schools have hundreds of kids in them. And in the case of a couple of us, Elko, 1,000 plus, like there's a lot of kids there. We're not changing what we're doing every day just because X parent is coming on campus. We're gonna run our school the way we run our school. And whether you want to come visit one time or you want to come visit 5 times or you want to come once a week during that semester, I mean, that's your prerogative as a parent. And I recognize that, someone might say, I don't have time to do that. But that's what we do as a community. If you recognize an issue and it's really that concerning to you, well, make sure you come have that talk and build that relationship with the administration, with the teacher, and try to resolve that problem. Like Susan said, it's a very commonplace thing nowadays, just to like snap a picture, take a video, or do something that can be taken out of context. And in the interest of working together, that's how we solve problems. We don't solve a problem by trying to aha someone and force them into resigning or try to get them fired. Like that's not how. That's assuming they're doing something wrong, right? Like we want to work together and try to resolve our issues as opposed to just get rid of the problem.
Any other comments from the board, or would you like to proceed?
I have one more.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'd just like to say, as I'm reading through this, it looks like somebody recording their child playing in a basketball game would be a violation of policy.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you there, Jeff. This is very specifically, I mean, while verbal communication does take place on a basketball court, that is neither the intent nor the reality of this policy. The policy is very specifically to record a conversation. Verbal communication and conversation, I think, are the two main phrases in there. And so, I mean, yes, technically conversations happen on the basketball court, but I think that would be being pretty literal.
The word conversation defined then at the bottom, like the other one. We picked up recording in school property.
Yeah. So the second paragraph says by any means a conversation with another person. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
And I think it also addresses, this is secretly recording, and you can't very secretly record a basketball game. If you want to see what's going on, you got to have your camera up and, be able to see. So I think that's also the intent of this policy is, secretly recording. So, all right, any other questions from the board before we move forward? How would we like to proceed?
I move to approve the revision to policy GDG 03.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the revision to policy GDG 03, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, chair votes aye, and that policy revision is approved. Item 2.6 is receipt of interim superintendent of schools self-evaluation and establishment of date to conduct evaluation of interim superintendent. All right, Mr. Anderson.
So I submitted that to all of you. It's been uploaded. Full disclosure, this is one of the more uncomfortable things I've ever had to do. I feel like I will advocate for myself right now. I feel like I do a really good job, and I feel like I've always done my best in every job I've ever had. And I'm proud to say that. It is really hard for me. In fact, some of my colleagues were borderline like laughing at me as they saw me trying to accomplish this task. So I'm not saying that so you'll be kind to me. I'm just letting you know that I don't care to relive every moment of this spreadsheet, but I would be happy to answer any and all questions you have. Not referring to anyone specifically with that comment, but any questions you have. I gave you I was looking at Josh the whole time, Matt. Don't take it personally.
No.
Before I talk about the specifics of what I entered, and I put this in an email, but I just want to clarify, I made modifications to the spreadsheet compared to what it was last week, but only in function. All categories remain the same, and all remained the same. The things that were changed were the golf scoring was a little odd, so I reversed that. So 1 is now bad, and 5 is really good. I also, just so it was easier so we didn't have to have multiple spreadsheets to track all this, I included my own, since we had an extra column there, I included my ratings there, but just removed that from the calculation of the equation. So you can see what I have given myself, but I promise it won't mess with the average at all. That'll be all you. Underneath, so there are 4 main categories. Under each main category, there are 5 subcategories. I gave myself a rating for each one of those. In each main category, I gave a narrative. Instead of doing a bulleted list of everything I've done over the last whole 2 months, right? Not even. It's been like 6 weeks. I just kind of talked about opportunities and things that I participated in. I can produce, lots of times it'll mention emails or calendar evidences, and I'm happy to produce those if they're needed. But narratives there and if you're looking at that and say, oh, I didn't know he did that, and you want to ask me about it, I'm happy to expound. So that was an evidence of strengths. So there's a paragraph about that with each main category. And then there's also my own personally identified areas where I know I'd like to continue growing and put future emphasis on something, or maybe it's an idea I've had, but I just haven't had a chance to implement it yet. And I know I want to do that. So that's kind of how that's structured. One other modification I made is we thought the I don't know with a 0 was a little odd to give someone a 0 just because you're not aware of what was there. So when you're going through this, should you put a DK in one of the boxes, it also won't affect the average. It'll be a notification to us that we need to discuss that. And then from there, you can type whatever you'd like instead of DK. I feel like we need to change it to IDK. It just seems weird just to say DK. DK is Donkey Kong for me.
I'm with you. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I knew you would.
All right, well, I will just start by saying I appreciate the work you put into this. It is hard to do a self-evaluation, and having to do not only a self-evaluation, but then the board evaluate you in an open session is, I would say, a pretty crazy labor practice that most people never have to go through in public. So I appreciate your work to go through this. I appreciate the evidence of strength that you showed. I appreciate your areas where you're saying, hey, I want to add a little more emphasis here. This is where we can improve. And I don't know if the board would like to go through this line by line. We will do that when we do our portion of the evaluation, or if the board would just like to ask specific questions on certain areas. But I just want to say thank you for the information, and let's see how the board wants to proceed with this.
I appreciate it's short and to the point. A few years ago, we were going to evaluate a superintendent on a Tuesday, and on a Friday, I got a binder about that thick, trying to read through that thing. And then we came up with about the same conclusion as this did. So, I appreciate the work you put into it.
Thoughts from the board? Questions?
I'd like to just add, I really appreciated reading through that and how you were. You had a couple areas where you were critical of yourself or said, I need to work on this. And I felt like it was a very honest reflection of what you're doing. I could see why you'd have a hard time putting that together, because that is a tough examination, but I feel like you did a great job with it.
Hey, Jeff, I know you can't necessarily see right now, and I know that category A, item 1 appears prepared is important to you.
Yeah.
I didn't have a cord last meeting, and it made me look pretty bad. I brought my cord today, so I'm plugged in and I'm more prepared today.
With me being here, I guess we're even. So.
I did notice that.
But if the cord's all we got to worry about, I think we're in pretty good shape.
True.
Believe it or not, I was not planning on commenting on this. I didn't want to go into detail. I appreciate your evaluation. I don't feel that we need to go into detail at this point, because we haven't evaluated yet, and I don't want anything other than what you've already presented. I think that should stand on its own right now, and we can discuss it at a later time. But I appreciate the ability and the opportunity to ask questions, but I will defer at this point. Madam Chair, I do believe, go ahead, Susan, I'm sorry.
Sorry. First, I agree with what everyone said. Thank you for putting this together. And hopefully a little more practice, you'll feel better about bragging about yourself a little bit, because you should. But I know that's difficult. I do have one quick question. Maybe you're just letting us think about it, but it says, I have some ideas under community relations. Is that for like next time when we talk about it, or are you going to surprise us? That's fine too.
So that's a little CJ flavor right there. That was my personality coming through. At the risk of sounding like a nerd, I was going for Buddy the Elf from the movie Elf, where he said, I have some ideas. That's what I was going for. And yes, I do not want to. Do you approve of that, Jeff?
Yeah, that's funny. I get it now.
I don't want to. I just have some fun ideas, like when it comes to for how we can engage the community and collaborate together and really gather input. I do have some ideas, and I think it would be premature and kind of, anticlimactic just to discuss everything that's going on in my head. But what I did want to highlight, and that's probably the area, if anyone I was most critical of myself, because when I came in here, I told myself that's a major priority, is to build relationships with community and build trust with community. And I feel like I've done a good job up to this point of building good relationships. But when I read that number 5 that says facilitates opportunities for input, I recognize that I need to be the facilitator of those opportunities rather than just the willing participant in the opportunities. And I have been quite possibly the most willing participant. If anyone has wanted anything, any discussion, any meeting, anything, I've been there, I've been responsive, and I've been responsive in an extremely timely manner. But I will admit that I can do a better job of being the one who makes that happen. And I'm committed to doing that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, any thoughts before we?
Everyone beats me to it, so I just kind of sit back.
I try to sit back when I can.
Josh, do you want to make the motion? I'll give you the first chance. We just need to make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent's
self-assessment.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion? All right,
I would
Are
just add,
we,
Matt
Go
didn't
ahead,
have
Jeff.
much to say there, then it must be good.
all right, I do apologize, Josh. We do need to set a date to conduct the evaluation,
thank you,
which will
Madam Chair.
be 2 weeks from today, but I will just help you with that too if you want to add that.
That would be fantastic.
Great. Okay. Is the maker of the second okay with that addition to the original motion?
Yes.
All right. Okay. We now have a motion on the floor to accept the evaluation and conduct the board's evaluation of the interim superintendent at our next board meeting, which will be 2 weeks from today. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and that motion carries. We'll move on to item 3.1, our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, nay? Chair votes aye, and the consent agenda is approved. Item 4.1 is a report from our NASB director. Jeff, any word from NASB for us?
Yes, all right. Coming to you live from Love's and McDonald's in Wells. I also missed the trip to Sparks. They ended up doing the meeting virtually last Saturday, February 5th. So we had a big Zoom meeting. That was fun because I got to recognize, a lot of faces from the last conference that we went to in November. The agenda was pretty run of the mill, just going through business and looking at finances. That was pretty interesting. There was some things that came up about we're in the last year of the contract for Harvey's in Tahoe, and the cost for that in the last year was around 80 grand, and they're looking at possibly some other facilities to move on to in the following years once we're done with that contract to try and reduce some of those costs. Also talked about some goals. One of the major ones was in talking about transparency and getting something together. We talked about not all the school districts in the state have an agenda item like we do for a NASB report. So we talked a little bit about that and about getting kind of some bullet points for whenever we have meetings for myself to be able to take back, and so that we're all kind of presenting the same information to each of the boards around the state. But it was a pretty informative meeting, and it was nice seeing some of those people, but those were the main things that we covered. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board for Jeff? All right, thank you for that report. Item 4.2 is items from board members.
I just wanted to go ahead and add that I had intended to be there in person. My apologies if the commitment I made when I took this position is that I wanted to be there in person every time, regardless of the distance. However, today, that couldn't be helped. There was a pretty major two semis outside of Wells. I was lucky I had my van with the DVD because I watched an entire movie sitting still on the freeway. But I was able to get to some good Wi-Fi and wherever to be. I'm glad I was able to join the meeting. So my apologies though for not being there in person. I will make every effort to be there in the future. I thought it was weather that was going to get me, but it's been beautiful today and just bad luck. So my apologies but glad I was able to make it in.
Well, Jeff, we're glad to have you even virtually.
And we're glad you're safe.
Yes. All right, any other items from board members? Susan, you had?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I'm trying to visit schools. So I visited Liberty Peak. I'd only seen the outside, never seen the inside. What a lovely facility. A nice award assembly that they had there. It was fun to see the principal know the kids' name. Like he knew every kid that came up to us outside at recess. It was fun. Spring Creek, then I went to Spring Creek High School, Carlin, Spring Creek Elementary School, and we just chatted a bit about how the students were doing. And they've got a handle on everything there. Yesterday, I went out to Wendover and visited all three of those schools. Once again, I didn't even know where the new elementary school was. I had a vision in my head and it was not where I thought it was. Here I thought I could just walk over to it. And somebody that I asked where it was said, "Oh, you want to drive over there?" I said, "Oh, okay." So I did find it, another lovely school. It was great talking with the principals. They were so, it was like going to a parent where they're proud of their child. They're just so proud of their students and their staff. And having started in Wendover, it was nice to hear the community and the staff. You know, there's a lot of the staff that has been there for quite a long time, and the difference that makes in that community, just that bond that they have was really good to see. And I know they do have some turnover, but they do have a good core group too. And they were talking about kind of growing your own teacher. So they have some students, former students, and now they're wanting to be teachers and then teach in that community, which is really great to see, because then they really know that community. Wendover High School, it's called School Pulse. And it's, they had a little folder for me. I just felt so cool. I was like, wow. But the School Pulse is a student well-being app. And so I joined the app, and so you can tell, how are you feeling today? And you text back 4 or 3 or whatever. And the principal said they kind of keep an eye on that. And so, you know, like if someone's suicidal, and then they can contact the right people. So it's new to them, the app, so they'll be evaluating that of whether they want to continue to use that or not. But it sounded like something great for mental health for students. And then they were just talking about their scores are pretty good considering everything that's happened. So they went out, because I'd never seen the track and everything behind the school. So the high school, so they showed me that, and they even gave me a little map of things they'd like to have, you know, just a regular lap, just the whole track, the athletics. So I really enjoyed my time there. I spent way longer than I thought. So I really appreciate the time they took with me, because I know they're busy, but they were very gracious. And I know Pat at the elementary school was waiting for lunch, like, when are you going to shut up, lady, and let's get some lunch. But I really enjoyed my time there. And then I visited with Lacey with the virtual academy. I hadn't seen the program itself, so it was nice. She showed that to me and how that's working. And wow, it just seems like she really has it together for those online students. So that was very interesting too. And I also went to the cake cutting for the 100th anniversary of the library, which was fun as well. Love books, love seeing all those books in there, and talked a bit with the librarian, and maybe, you know, talking about just maybe we can have some collaboration. Not that we don't, but some more collaboration with the library. And, you know, I told her she should let us know that she wants to speak, and that would be great to have her. She's got some wonderful ideas for expansion of the library, so it was really good. So I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Anyone else?
Sure.
Go.
I beat you to it.
Yeah, I know. Go.
I had a couple things I was going to write down, but I since changed my mind that I wanted to talk about. The big thing is that I'm trying to get out to the schools, just so the schools know I do have patients to take care of. But we're trying to work on that. In the meantime, I am talking to patients about substitute teaching, just so everybody knows. So I know I've talked to 2 specifically that are waiting in their specific fields are waiting for certification from the state. And so I was like, well, while you're doing that, have the state make another one for substitute teaching. So we are working through that. I also wanted just to I reiterated when we did the presentation this morning for the beginning of this meeting for CTE, as far as how blessed we are. When I get stuff from a lot of the letters I get from the public are very pointed and very discriminatory as far as where the school district is at. It seems as though it's become public. It's acceptable in the public to criticize without knowing. And so it just is our interim superintendent pointed out, I would encourage a lot of people to come see what's going on with your children or with your grandchildren or with your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, kids, your nieces and nephews, because I sit and I watch sports and I see what we have here in Elko. And we're very blessed. Every relative I've ever had come and watch my children has been just completely dumbfounded with how amazing that our schools take care of our kids and how involved our teachers are and who is there. So I would encourage the public again to reassess what they think they know about the district and start to gather fact as far as what is truly happening in the district, especially when it comes to CTE, when it comes to sports, when it comes to extracurriculars, and when it comes to academics, which is what we're here for too as well. So.
Thanks, Josh. All right.
Ira, all right. Only a couple. Thank you to CJ or Cassie or whoever on the staff ensured that the non-confidential attachments were in the public side instead of the administrative side or whatever that second one is. So I hope that was helpful. I don't think there's anything that was restricted to us except for the consent agenda. So if there was something that was restricted, if you'll continue to let us know, because I think sometimes it's just an oversight. We're not trying to be obtuse. We want to be transparent. And then specific to the evaluation of the interim superintendent, but for all things, I invite our administrators, our teachers, our staff, and the public specifically to let us know if there is something that they see. Reach out to us. Specifically in the next 2 weeks, reach out to us with interactions that you've had with Mr. Anderson. I'm hoping that they're all positive, but sometimes, there is some growth that can be done there. But we don't know what we don't know. I can only evaluate him on what I've personally witnessed or what I've been made aware of, and then have taken the time to do fact checking and explore. So please do let us know. We don't operate in a silo, though sometimes we don't, though almost always we don't have all of the information. And so we want to make sure that we do have that information. So please do reach out to us. And I don't know, CJ, if you're going to bring this up or not, but I've had more people than I thought I would ask about the masking in some schools, but not in others. And I have appreciated the communication that you've sent out that's allowed me to have that knowledge to be able to explain why that exists and now potentially the non-contact tracing. So I appreciate your efforts on that, and whoever else in the staff, please also pass along my appreciation to the Department of Education, Board of Health, whoever it is that you've been working with. That I appreciate them working with us. Let's find a solution. We're not going to have it the way we want it all the time, but if they can understand where we're coming from and we can continue to make these small inroads, then I think we'll get through this a little bit quicker. 2 years is a heck of a long time, so let's keep working on getting that a little faster than 2 years. But thank you very much for your efforts to educate us, to educate the community, but also to educate the Department of Education and the Health and Human Services of what the situation on the ground is. Madam Chair, I rest for now.
Thank you.
Could I add
Anything
one
to
more
share?
thing?
Oh, go ahead. Susan.
Okay. Oh, no, go ahead, Ira. 'cause
Go
this
ahead.
is good.
No.
I forgot to mention the STARS program. I've sent the information I need put on the website. So I'm waiting for that to get put on the website by the powers that be, at whoever that is that does that. And then we'll get started. I have most of the committee. I need a couple people is all. I have some leads, and I will have them no matter what by the end of February when nominations are due. So I look forward to getting started with that, and the committee's excited. So we're all good to go.
Thank you. And just for anyone who's watching who doesn't know what the STARS program is, would you just tell us what that stands for?
It's a recognition program. So what will happen is you'll be able to nominate a classified or certified person in the district. Anyone can do the nomination except yourself. You can't nominate yourself. And And you'll fill out this form and then the committee will get together by Zoom so that no one has to travel, and the committee is not being paid, just so everyone knows. And the winners of each month get a gift card from Amazon and probably some flowers. And once again, that money does not come out of the district budget, just so everyone knows. Usually it's some kind of donation. We're lucky we have some gift cards that are left over. So because no one sought out donations, but we will take care of that for next year. We'll get that going, but we're good to go for this year. But I just want to know what the money. So it's a great recognition program. And it's been around a long time.
And to sweeten the deal, Susan and CJ will come out and embarrass you in front of your peers at school as well. So yeah, photo op and all that.
I approve.
All right. Okay, thank you. And I just want to wish our student athletes and those who are in organizations and clubs who are preparing for regional or state competitions good luck, because we've got a lot of students that are going to be starting to wind down one season and some starting another. Well, like I say, whether it's athletics or clubs, organizations. So good luck to them as they prepare for those regional and state competitions. And we look forward to seeing lots of titles brought back, whether they're academic or athletic or, FFA awards or whatever other organizations. We wish you all the best. All right. If there's nothing else on that one, we'll move to item 5.1, our superintendent's report.
All right, I've got a list of things I won't spend too much time on, but before I get to my list of talking points, there are a few attachments there. One is Jackpot has requested an early out, a shortened day, and just as a brief explanation, when Susan was talking about the things she saw over in West Wendover, the school improvement side of me thought inquiry area 1, inquiry area 2, inquiry area 3. I was hearing all the things they were doing as follow through and improvements for their schools. So it was good to hear that. That's what Jackpot's request is boiling down to. This goes along with, that would be, I believe, inquiry area 3. So they've got a special speaker that's going to come in, and the speaker is coming in to address a topic that was specifically gleaned from responses from parents on a survey they did about what parents think the community or the school community could benefit from. And so they're responding directly to the parents' request for that added emphasis. So that's what that one's about. And I've approved it, but that is just for your information that's what that one's about. The enrollment comparison, I won't get into. And then the third attachment, the top non-capacity related capital improvement projects. It was requested of Casey and I that normally you would see a construction update page, and what that in reality is that is meant to show you where we are at any given point with major projects that are going on at any given time. And then below there, it would say projects in development. And there was a confusion of, are those all the projects? Which ones are the most important ones? Is it alphabetical? Is it date put on there? Like there was no logical organization to the untrained eye, so to speak. And the reality is those were not all of our projects. Those are our projects in development that could be more summed up as being in the R&D stage of projects. Whether it was coming up, thinking of design or assessing need. So Casey put together, because the request was knowing that we're about to enter where, a consulting group might come look at what we're going to be doing, knowing that we have a limited amount of funds and what are the most vitally necessary, highest worry projects right now. Casey put that list together. I believe they are in order of importance, 1 through 6 on that page. And he worked with Alan Stefgar, clerk of the works, and the two of them made sure we knew what were the most pressing matters at our campuses as of, I think he turned this into me Monday. So as of yesterday. So that's
Casey,
what that list is for. If you have questions about it, Casey can help you.
I greatly appreciate this. This is certainly helpful. Thank you, CJ, as well. Next request would be estimated amounts. How much of the 18 million is this going to eat up? And I'm not saying you have to answer it now, but if at the next meeting, we could maybe get. Great.
Because I don't know when. Now, if they happen with today's inflation rates and shipping, supply chain issues, I have no idea what they would cost. What I can kind of come close to giving you would be grammar number 2, who was very similar to Wells. At today's cost, it'd probably be a $10 million project.
A $10 million project?
Yeah. So we couldn't do the first 2 probably, is what we have remaining.
Okay.
Not all mechanical upgrades are created equal. I just from telling you the way it went at Wells, they literally had to gut. Like some places, they'll say, hey, we're going to upgrade. We're going to move this piece of machinery out. We're going to move this one in. In Wells, they had to remove literally every heater, every bit of wiring, the basement got completely gutted out. Every pipe, every tube, everything was all ripped out and had to all be replaced. So that would be a very extensive mechanical upgrade, whereas others still expensive, but I think the older things are, the longer it's been since it's been phased out, the more updated it needs to be, right? It's a more extensive update.
Yeah, grammar number 2, the steam system. So we got steam pipes in these dirt tunnels underneath the school that would all have to be removed. All the steam radiators would have to be removed and completely gut it. Then start over with new.
And what determines the timing of that project? When it breaks or?
Well, that's when we discussed about possibly buying a backup boiler and having it on hand.
Okay.
I mean, if you want me to start design, we can start design in 2 years, start the project, but I don't know if we'd have any money.
I'm assuming the boiler on backup is not going to be $10 million.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think, and you, CJ, maybe you and I can visit on this. But I think we're gonna, in order for me to be able to know how $18 million is going to be spent, I'll need more information that we have here, but I certainly respect that. Yeah, that's a $10 million project. But if we don't know when it's going to start, I don't want to sit on $18 million or $10 million for 6 years if we don't need to. If we can put that to use now and get a bang for the buck, then certainly that needs to be weighed against what are we doing waiting for the sky to fall at Grammar 2. Grammar 2 deserves to be able to have a working mechanical system, but and I'm not expecting you to be an actuarial either. But I think we are going to need some more information. Do you, in your opinion, do you think this is going to be a 2-year project? Is this a 4-year timeline if we started design? Those kind of things. I'm not expecting an answer right now, but for me personally, I'll need more information. This is a tremendous start and I greatly appreciate it. I just think we're going to need some more information as we move forward. And I'm happy to visit with you and CJ to get those that information. But
well, we do that every spring as part of pay-as-you-go required by NRS to do a 5-year capital plan. So I still have to do that for the remaining money. So this spring I'll be going through and have a short list of projects showing the timing and estimated costs.
Great.
What they will be.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And again, I appreciate this. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Awesome. So those are the attachments. The rest are just items I want to mention real quick. So we got a great presentation from Heather about our CTE and those amazing things that are happening. It is CTE month and just want to recognize them. An extra kudos to just because I was at a meeting yesterday, a local governance meeting, and a gentleman there who I'd never met before. When he realized who I was, he said, and I mentioned that it was CTE month and that sort of thing. He said, I just want to let you know, and Heather, you can pass this on in case they're not listening, but that he was recently at something doing some judging for FFA at a regional situation. I don't know what the event was called, but he said he noted how professional and how well represented Elko was because of the Wells, Elko, and Spring Creek FFA groups that were there. They really represented our district very well, not just in winning things, but he said the way they carried themselves, the way they behave, the way they act, the way they represent their schools and their district. So really, we already knew they were awesome. We saw that, but just it's when you hear it from someone you've never met before. It's the only thing he really talked to me about the whole time. I'm not offended by that, but it's interesting that he wanted to mention that. So really good job to them.
Mr. Anderson, can I just interject something? Because
Sure.
I did forget. The speech and debate tournament is this weekend in Elko, and anyone who would like to judge, I'm sure they are still looking for judges. And it's a lot of fun if you are available. So,
Took something
sorry.
off my list, Trace.
There you go. Sorry. I
That's
should have let
okay.
you finish.
That's all right. So I guess since she said that, I'll go into a list of some things that I've either been to or going to be at and encourage people to see. So yes, there's a speech and debate tournament on Friday. The calendar says it's through Saturday, but I spoke with someone today at Elko High, and yes, they would be interested in having volunteers for that. Not anymore now, but while we've been in here, the regional honor choir rehearsed yesterday and today and performed tonight. So if you heard cherubic harmonious sound waves and you thought you could maybe hear it off in the distance, that was over there at the Performing Arts Center. Kids from not just schools in our district, but from White Pine and Lander and other areas around Northeast Nevada. They were here, and I got an opportunity to listen to them rehearse a little bit today because I anticipated, based on what our agenda looked like, that I would not make it there before the concert ended. And they sounded amazing. It was very wonderful. If anyone attended the one 2 years ago before COVID happened, it was the same gentleman from UNLV who was directing them, and he's got a great way with kids. And not only was the music awesome, but right before I left, he was engaging them in a discussion. He said, I think we're done practicing music, but I want to talk to you guys about college and about your futures. And the kids asked questions about music, careers in music, and about just about, being a professional and moving on from high school. And it was, I don't know, 100 and something kids just chatting with this university professor and asking any question they wanted to ask. And it was pretty awesome. So great opportunity for them. And they sounded phenomenal. And then, we have the regional wrestling tournament for 3As at Spring Creek this weekend. That's what I'm told. And I'm planning, I've got a couple of 3A kiddos I know that I'll be dead if I don't go watch them wrestle. So check that out. And then, just over the next few weekends, all of our kids' hard work from the winter season will be coming to fruition. We've got a lot of teams that have some pretty great opportunities to bring home some hardware, as they say. So if you know a wrestler or a basketball player, encourage them and give them your support over the next few weeks. And then I'm sure there's more happening, but as I find that out, I'll let you know. Give you a couple more updates as well from an academic standpoint. We'll plan on presenting some data to you in some form or fashion soon. Our winter map testing cycle officially ends on February 18th. We are hopeful that we will conclude by the end of this week, but if we need time for makeup, we have through next week, and we will get to see how kids have progressed since September when they tested originally, and how they're doing on their path to the spring map testing and to the SBAC that they'll take in the spring. So I'll keep you posted on that. You all would have received the COVID guidance update, and I do want to, there is a little bit of a back and forth battle with DHHS, I will admit. I'm very appreciative to them, but we also have been very clear about what challenges exist. And I want to point out to people, because there are many that think that we are sitting and taking the direction and, kneeling down and doing whatever we're told to do. And the reality is we're doing what we're supposed to do, but we're also trying to impact change. And I am not bold enough to think that I singularly made something happen, and I'm not saying that, but I do want to say that shortly after we made our needs known and the other superintendents in the state made our needs known, literally within a week, that's when the updated guidance came. That's when and there's verbiage in there that says that they understand what we're going through. The contact tracing restrictions have reduced in certain situations. Requirements where a recommended booster was mandatory to be fully vaccinated, they backed off on that and allowed people for opportunities to catch up with that. And they've made changes that give us the opportunity to keep kids in school more. And so while it's easy to be mad at them because they are the ones that are health authorities imposing restrictions, so to speak, they're listening and they're trying to work with us, and they also want us to be able to keep our schools open. And so we're grateful for that guidance. Do we want more things to happen? Sure. But we're grateful that people are listening, and I don't want anyone to think that there's just some people sitting in a tower and, pointing and we have to obey. It's different than that. It's more cooperative. Last time I was here, I complained and also let you know about our frustrations with the athletic testing situation. I'm happy to report that as of Monday, we were able to, so I guess prior to Monday was the implementation of our new plan, but between the last time we talked and Monday, we were able to secure a rapid testing solution for all of our athletes. It was not, the original plan we had wasn't feasible because to be able to procure those tests and have the right licensing and the challenges I let you know about existed. However, through some grant funds that came to us, and also the state willing to contribute some state grant funding as well, we were able to secure a company that facilitates all of that. And it doesn't, you talked about our human capital and the resources we're spending. We have removed that burden from our coaches and from other staff members. Not entirely, they're still part of the process, but this company has the tests, they have the means, they have the people, they have the transportation. And this week, within 10 minutes of taking a test, kids had results and they were back in class. And we weren't sitting around for days wondering what was going to happen. And we've got it streamlined to the point right now where, and Keith, you can cut me off if I'm speaking out my ears or anything, but where we are able to get all of everybody tested on Monday and Tuesday of the week. It was a little, just because of the distance we have to travel in Elko County, it's pretty tough to do it in one day, but they got it all done in 2 days. And kids they were in and out and taken care of. And yeah, seems like a good alternative to what we were dealing with not too long ago. Feels like more than just a couple of weeks ago that we were putting up with all that, but it worked great today. And we anticipate that as groups go out more, we have FFA and choir and others traveling, and inevitably when you go from winter to spring, you have more kids playing sports, because winter it's very minimal how many sports we're doing. Spring it expands. But Keith he went and observed at both Elko High and Spring Creek. Elko didn't have as many to test. It was painless. And then he went over to Spring Creek, who had significantly more because they had other co-curriculars going within the next week. But it was just as quick and painless. Like, it was just a good streamlined system, and they've got it down. Yeah, it's pretty good to push basically a kid a minute through that process. And it's important too that we don't take kids out of class or anything like that for an extended period of time. And if we can sacrifice for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it's not bad. It's pretty good. So perfect? No. Is everyone psyched about testing? No. But we're able to keep kids on the court and on the mat and on the stage by doing this. And so we're grateful for the opportunity, and it seems like it's going to be a fine solution throughout the rest of our year. And then one last thing, promise. I also harped quite a bit about how exclusions were affecting our staff and our ability to keep our schools staffed. The numbers have gone down. I'm not going to read every number from every school day of the last 2+ weeks. But before, if I recall, when we added them up, we were somewhere in the mid to high 20s of unfilled vacancies every day. We've had some days in the single digits. We're still sitting around like 12 to 14 a day district-wide right now. But and tomorrow we're projected to have 3, but we know that number will be higher. Those numbers are starting to go down. If all projections and signs of things are right from health authorities, fingers crossed, those will continue to decline. So, but we're, again, same thing stands from what I said last time. Our teachers, our principals, our vice principals, our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers, everybody is doing everything they can to keep our schools running. And I'm abundantly appreciative for everything they do. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Anderson? All right, thank you for a great report. We'll move on to item 6.1, approval of the accounts payable.
I only have 3, but I'll let you go first if you have anything that you want to do first. Great, then Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, ask away.
3 questions, 2 of them are the same payee actually it's the Office of the Military. Both are referencing Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy. One is on the top of page 5, the other's on the top of page 11. I recognize one's a reissue of a check. Collectively, though, it's just under $90,000. I thought the Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy was paid for by the National Guard and or other agencies.
Okay, so per our agreement, the Office of the Military pays for their expenses, but the condition is we send them the per pupil revenue we receive. So the money we receive in the pupil-centered funding plan, so the second quarter was 21 students. So we sent 21 students worth of that money back to them. And then we send them an invoice for their actual expenses. So we give them 40,000 and then they cut a check for 120,000 back to us.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Next one up is on page 8, Board of Regents. It's a smaller amount by far. We're paying the Board of Regents $6,000 for the 21st century. I thought, is that a grant?
Yeah, talk about that one.
So the 21st Century Program is a federal grant that we have for extended opportunities with Southside, Owyhee, and Wendover Elementary School. A part of that grant is that we are required to have a third-party evaluation. So we have partnered with UNR, and they actually just came last week and observed all our classrooms. But basically, they're just assessing our programs to make sure that the funding we're using is actually producing.
Thank you. That is it, Madam Chair and Dr. Byers.
Any other questions, or are we ready to?
I just had a couple.
Please go for it.
Are you kidding?
Can you just refresh me what's at risk again? There's just a lot. It's a lot on there.
I want to go over that too. She has a better definition than I do.
Okay.
So within the pupil-centered funding formula, a lot of our categorical grants have been swooped up within, they go to the state and then they're basically reallocated. The at-risk formula funds are based on student counts, but they've also pulled in our Victory grant that serves Wendover and Owyhee in there. But we also have additional funds based on our at-risk student counts that we allocate to all the schools. So if you see at-risk funding on there, that's the at-risk grant. And then depending on the count number, you can see what school it's dedicated to. So there was a lot of at-risk purchases. I think we mentioned last board meeting that we had around 30 teachers go to the Get Your Teach On conference. So there's some expenditures for that. But they have strategies that they have to use within this, and there's certain allowabilities to help serve those students.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good.
That's it. All right. All right, how would you like to proceed?
Madam Chair, move to accept the payables for February 8th, 2022.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? All right, all in favor of approving the accounts payable February 8th, 2022, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Oh, I did not ask for any abstentions or disclosures on that particular motion. All right, the chair votes aye, and that portion of the accounts payable are approved.
Madam Chair, move to accept the Wells Rural accounts payable for February 8th, 2022.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I will disclose that I have a family member who is employed by Wells Rural Electric, so I will also be abstaining. All in favor of approving the accounts payable to Wells Rural Electric, February 8th, 2022, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And the chair is abstaining, but the motion carries. Item 7.1 is input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. And I'm not going to read it all because it's late. Everyone knows what it is. So is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on to adjournment of the meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful evening and a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.